Liana, did Ray Luter's comment make it in? I didn't see it in the packet, the email he sent.
What time did you open the packet?
The last time, a couple hours ago.
Okay. So yeah, it's in there now.
Okay, fair enough.
So let me know when you're ready. You want me to start recording?
Yes, please.
Yep.
Go ahead and start the meeting. Being recorded. We'll go ahead and start the meeting at 6:02. Thank you very much for being here. There's participants. I'm all discombobulated. All right, so let's get going. I've been trying all day to get all my tabs all squared away, and I still find myself unprepared, so I apologize. Okay, there have been a couple changes to the agenda. Doesn't look like anything major, so good. Oh, okay, I see that now.
Mm-hmm.
That it was added in there. Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda items A through C.
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Is there any discussion? I'd like to do a roll call for the vote. No Amy yet. All right. Robert?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Annie?
Aye.
And Amy, welcome. Have you had a chance to review the consent agenda? All right, if you want to give me an aye or a nay.
Yep. Aye. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Public comments. So this is a chance for the public to address the city council. Some of the items on the agenda may or may not be open for public comment. So if you do want to chime in on something, with the exception of the public hearing portion, of course, just a quick note, the public comment section is the best way to speak to the city council as a group. Emailing is fine, and then some city council members choose to respond back, or that you might not get their response back right away. At these meetings, we expect you to be respectful of other people's opinions and expect that there will be opinions different than your own. Being respectful of that is what we expect at our meetings. What we don't expect is being disrespectful of other people's opinions outside of these meetings or outside of the forum of public discussion. So if you do have something that you would like to say, disparaging or otherwise, give that person an opportunity to look you in your eye and say what is right or what is wrong about your comments or why you feel differently than they do. So there have been some events outside of here, a couple, and I would like to avoid that. This is not the way that we run a government, and this is not the way that we treat or respect other humans. So if you do have something to say, hopefully it's a good thing. These meetings are the best place to do that. So with that in mind, who would like an opportunity to address City Council?
I haven't received any comments via email after the packet was published.
Okay, and I don't see any hands yet. Okay. All right. Presentations from outside agencies. And we have Paul Foster Longi with us today.
Correct. I just promoted them, so they should be showing up soon. And let me, hello, let me allow them to share screens. There you go. So you should be able to.
Okay, let's see if this works.
We're seeing it.
Okay, great. And is Seth on the line as well? Oh yeah, I see him.
Good evening, everybody.
Okay, great. So yeah, actually, Seth is going to get us going here, but I'll just quickly introduce myself. My name's Ben Johnson. I'm a project planner at Mall Foster, and over the past few months, I've been working with Ben Shoemaker and Liana on the Columbia Avenue realignment project, and excited to share a little bit about that tonight.
I'm Seth Otto, senior planner with Mall Foster Longy. Mall Foster, or MFA, is a multidisciplinary environmental engineering, science, and planning firm based in Vancouver. We've been working in Stevenson now going on 5 years in various different capacities. Currently, we are working as a consultant to the county, to Skamania County, in helping them to implement an EPA-funded brownfield community-wide assessment project. Many of you are aware of that. It's helped to pay for environmental site assessments around the county in Stevenson, North Bonneville in particular. And one of the projects is associated here with the realignment. Ben will provide greater details as we give you the update, but the property that you're looking at here, we call it the Malonis property. There's a dentist there and a parking lot adjacent to it. Is the subject of a fair amount of environmental assessment work given historic uses there. But the project we're giving you an update on is also grant funded, but focuses on the realignment and redevelopment of Columbia Avenue as a what EPA calls an area-wide planning project. So utilizing EPA funds that otherwise might be earmarked for environmental work and using it for community development and planning work, with the understanding that that work leads ultimately to the cleanup and redevelopment of a blighted property. So that's how we got where we are today. Ben's going to run us through an update on the project, and we're available for questions as needed. Just by way of a little bit of background here, the Columbia Street realignment was a priority project that came out of the Stevenson Downtown Plan for Success. And one of the key components of that was getting the alignment aligned, getting the right-of-way aligned between First Street, Second Street, and on up the hill, with the benefit being greater circulation, pedestrian amenities, and the opportunity to bring in the kind of denser mixed-use development that is envisioned in that plan.
Great. So yeah, I wanted to share a little bit about the work that we've done to date. So we started off by doing an existing conditions analysis of the site. So that involves looking at both the physical conditions, including locations of utilities, as well as the Stevenson City Code and regulatory constraints that will impact future development of the site. So this slide is just showing some of the surrounding uses, including Big T's Grill, the dentist office, and then the gas station to the northwest. So just highlighting a couple findings from that work. These two maps are showing the existing underground utilities. So the map at the top with the blue lines is showing the municipal water lines. You can see those run on the east side of the street. And the map below is showing the existing sanitary sewer lines, which are on the opposite or west side of the street. And this was particularly important because we were interested in seeing if once the street is realigned, if some or all of the utilities will also need to be relocated. We're also interested in, because it's a EPA brownfield grant, wading into the environmental impacts in and around the site. We started off by doing a phase 1 environmental site assessment. So that involves looking into the historical records in the area, past uses of the site, as well as ecology's database of existing cleanup sites. So this map is showing 2 existing cleanup sites that are right adjacent to the stretch of Columbia Ave that we're interested in. The first one is the Hunsaker Oil Stevenson Station. This site is related to the previous gas station that was located on the site. I understand it had several underground fuel storage tanks that are in the current parking lot area here that were since removed, but they found petroleum impacted soil and groundwater at that site during that process. And then the other cleanup site in the area is called the Mid-State Land Company. And that's the dentist office parking lot on the corner here. Up until 1995, there was a building on the site that had historic uses of a auto repair shop, a dry cleaner, and a paint shop. It was torn down in 1995. There's some soil sampling done at that time that found petroleum impacted soil and groundwater. It underwent quite a bit of remediation work where both soil and groundwater removed from the site. But there was some soil contaminated or petroleum impacted soil that remained on the site after that cleanup process. We also did a phase 2 environmental assessment of that property. And so that's where you actually go and collect samples and analyze them. So that resulted in us finding that there was some remaining petroleum impacted groundwater at the northern portion of the site. Currently, it's suspected that that may be coming from either the previous or current gas station, although we don't quite know enough at this point to determine the exact source of the contamination. And we have some additional assessment plan that we'll get to when we get into the next steps of the project. So after the existing conditions work was complete, we transitioned over to creating a conceptual site plan for the realignment. This is showing a preliminary diagram that was done as a part of the Stevenson Downtown Plan for Success, just showing roughly the location of the relocated right-of-way and some of the surrounding development potential. So this is the updated site plan. You can see that, so in gray here is the relocated right-of-way. And we're showing a lot of improvements to the right-of-way that are envisioned in the downtown plan, including wider 10-foot sidewalks, tree wells for street trees, bike racks, pedestrian lighting, these curb extensions and decorative crossings that will allow for safe pedestrian access. These are similar to the improvements that are going on Russell Street and First Street. It also shows, so here in this dotted line, can you see my cursor? Okay. This dotted line here is the existing right-of-way. So the 60-foot right-of-way currently is right here. And the new right-of-way remains 60 feet, but it's relocated 40 feet to the east. So this is adding another layer to the site plan, showing the existing and proposed utilities. So it's a little hard to see, but this dotted line here that is marked with SS is the existing sanitary sewer line. So you can see that once the street's relocated, that sanitary sewer line is no longer within the right-of-way. So there's a new relocated sanitary sewer line proposed that's shown in this double black line here. The existing water line still remains within the relocated right-of-way, so it's running under the sidewalk here. So our sense is that that will not need to be relocated, although there is a existing hydrant that's kind of this offshoot here from the water line that will need to be relocated.
Ben, quick question. That
Yeah.
existing water line what, do we know what material that is? Is that something that would be slated to be replaced at some time, or is that a newer construction or newer material?
Yeah, we didn't find any current plans to replace that water line. As far as I know, it's an older water line. Although I may have to look into that a bit more to confirm that.
Okay,
It's a ductile iron. It doesn't need to be replaced. Just the hydrant should be moved.
that's the answer I needed. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. And then this final plan here is a section drawing. So if you were to cut into the street, it shows a little bit better the kind of dimensions of the right of way. So you have 60 feet total with 10-foot sidewalks, an 8-foot parking strip, and then smaller 11-foot drive lanes. And then it also shows the new proposed sanitary sewer line and the approximate location of the existing water line underneath the sidewalk here. So yeah, that's about where we're at currently. I mentioned before that there's some additional sampling that's planned that will be funded by the EPA grant. And that's going to take place within the next couple months and be located in the portion of the Columbia Ave, the current Columbia Ave right away, in the 40-foot portion that will eventually be, the city will eventually want to dispose of. So it'll help us get an idea if there's any impacts going on there that might affect the future transaction of the property. We're also assisting the city with a application to the Washington State Department of Ecology for their integrated planning grant program. And that's a $200,000 grant that can fund both environmental assessment and cleanup and redevelopment planning. So if we're successful with that, that would bring additional assessment funding to the program and allow you to do some more in-depth site planning and feasibility planning work. So once that additional funding is in place, some next steps would be to do some outreach to the surrounding property owners to get an idea of what, if any, redevelopment plans they might have for their property and gauge their interest in doing some environmental assessment on their own property. And then also doing that additional implementation plan that models the need for potential cleanup as well as realignment and redevelopment in the surrounding area.
Ben, I just want to clarify something. We have been contacting the current property owners as well, so this doesn't come as a surprise to them. We're not, our first outreach isn't after this presentation. We've contacted them in the past, and they know that we're talking about this project.
Right.
And so far, all signs are pointing to just, we need more information. Let's go ahead and move forward. So if there were people that weren't on board with it, then we would be taking a different approach, and we wouldn't be where we're at right now.
Right. That's a good point. Thanks for clarifying there. So yeah, that concludes our update here. Are there any questions for Seth or I?
Yeah, Ben, and this might not be a question for you. It could be for city staff. In regards to those surrounding businesses that will be impacted by this, what is the sense of including them in some kind of grant process so that they don't need to absorb the costs that will ultimately come about for them?
Can
I'll take the first shot.
clarify what cost you're thinking of, Annie? Is it property acquisition? Is it cleanup? Or,
Yeah, I would say cleanup for the gas station specifically. And then throughout the rebuilding of this, all of those businesses are going to be impacted, especially Big T's, with the street tear up. And so what are we going to do as a city council, if there is anything we can do to ensure that those businesses aren't caught off guard, as Liana had said earlier, and also are supported throughout this process?
I'll take the first shot at this and start with that last question there about involving the property owners and minimizing disturbance during construction.
Right.
That's a process we go through during the engineering phase, design engineering phase for construction projects. So as an example, for the Russell Street project that we just finished, we had our detour plan, and we were sure to keep the corridor open and accessible as possible. With COVID, it ended up being that we could shut it down to automotive traffic and not have as big of an impact, but it's something that we consider during that construction phase. Where we're at right now is a ways from that step, but I wanted to address what your questions about how is this going to help the property owners? And that's one of the reasons why I'm most excited about this as a project. Going back to the EPA grant that we're doing this assessment with, is something that Skamania County obtained, and I was very supportive of that at the time because it's part of changing the narrative that's happening in Skamania County. Right now, there's a lot of poor us. We've got the scenic area. We can't do anything. And that spreads. So a lot of times when we talk to potential developers that come in, they say, well, now you're in the scenic area. I know that there's a lot of prohibitions and you can't do anything in the city. And I always have to explain, no, you can do more in the city. And so this focus on what you can do is a slow narrative change that we're working on with these brownfields grants, and then that the EDC picked up on when they started the housing needs analysis and buildable lands inventory. So we are undertaking this completely to help property owners and to help them get to the next step of developing. With this specifically, if there are contaminated soils, those will be found at some point. And so these grants are identifying first whether they're likely to be found. That's the phase 1 environmental site assessment. Phase 2, which is occurring for some properties in this corridor, including the actual road corridor, is that contamination is likely. Now, where is it and what type is it? The next step in that is what we're applying for that ecology funding for, to say, now that we know that it's there and what type it is, what needs to be done to clean it up. And so we're undertaking that process, certainly for the right of way, if we hope to sell that to anybody. And to the extent that we get buy-in from the other owners to have work done on their property, that'll be their decision. But for those that do take us up on that, it'll identify how those properties need to be cleaned up. What we're also hoping to get with that is a regulatory analysis saying that, hey, your city regulations might prevent you from achieving the plan as we've envisioned it, or as those property owners envision it as we work forward. And so finding recommendations about how to change the city regulations is that third step in this, to make it more possible for these private property owners to develop those properties.
Yeah, thanks for that, Ben. And I really do appreciate the bit that you added about changing the narrative. I think we do need to consider these positive developments moving forward, and that, yes, it is possible, and yes, we can do it, and yes, we are the collective body to start that conversation. So thank you on that. I would like to add, though, just as a comment, it doesn't need a response, that the gas station on the corner is also, it's a multi-business platform. And so I am concerned, and will keep my eye on how we move forward with that, because businesses have been struggling during COVID, especially. And I want to make certain that those businesses are supported in a way that allows them to keep moving forward with any design changes that we decide to do as a city. Thanks.
So Annie, I'm not sure how much of when we were going through the public comment and the public input on our downtown plan for success, but there was two plans. What would we call it, City Ben? Two two ideas that were presented as these are some things, some wins that you can schedule for yourself. One of them was extending Rock Creek Drive from second down to first. And then the other one was this part, this realignment part. And we all decided, said, well, yeah, this is a great idea. And it feels like low hanging fruit. So then it's like, okay, we deserve a cool thing to happen. We like this idea, we're moving in the right direction, but what's next? How do we even begin to tackle a project we have no money set aside for it? We agree it's a good idea. Where do we go from here? And it was Ben working with the county that said these are funds that are available, and this is a platform, a springboard, if you will, to get us started down that direction. So I don't want anybody to think that this was, ooh, we know there's contamination down there, and this is a great way for us to get our way. No, that's not that at all. This is a great way for us to leverage existing funds to get a project that is going to mean a great deal to our community, but then also along the way, do some cleanup that might not have been discovered for quite a bit longer. So the next business isn't going to be dealing with, oh yeah, great idea, but you've got some problems in your soil.
Yeah, understood. Thanks, Scott.
I have a quick question. What's the net change in parking?
That's a good question. We didn't actually map out how many additional street parking spaces would be there. I believe there is existing street parking on either side of the current right of way.
Give me a couple minutes. We'll find the answer to that.
Okay.
As I recall, currently it's kind of guerrilla parking. It's not really marked.
Right.
So also keep that is part of the as we're moving forward with with our downtown plan, is Ben has in planning have been working on the changing the requirements for parking. And of course, when we talk about sidewalks and decorative, adding trees and stuff, it's going to be a little bit better than guerrilla parking when the project is done.
Can I be the poo-poo guy here, or is the lawyer? Or Amy, go ahead, because mine's going to be negative. So you go ahead.
I just want to say I've had my hand raised for quite some time, so thank you, Robert. And maybe that's not the best way to do it. Maybe I should not be using this icon for raising my hand. Scott, you let me know.
Yeah, if you're using that icon, with this shared screen version, I have no idea that that's going on. So I actually probably do need a
wave.
Sorry.
Oh, no worries. I want to comment on two things. One, and I'll be quick, I think, Robert. One is how exciting this is, because this is going to come online, and I want to ask what the timeline is specifically. I know we're at the beginning phases, but what is the timeline? Because I think this is going to come online right around the same time as the wastewater treatment plant. And so we are essentially investing in our infrastructure so that we are shovel ready or project ready, as they say. Is that correct? Is that a correct assessment?
At this point, timelines are all determined on outside funding, unless the city council wants to really devote more to it. So what we know right now is that in March or April, we'll have the results on is there contamination and what type for underneath the existing roadway. And about that same time, we'll know whether we get that ecology grant to move forward with it. Ben or Seth, you can give me a better idea of what the timelines might be for products from that grant. But I do think that it may be farther out than the wastewater plant.
Okay. But in any event, after and not before, and we're laying that groundwork now, which I think is the important part. This is a long time project, and this is us doing the work to be ready for it to come online when, rather than waiting a couple of years or whatever to see and then make the investment, and then you're even further down the line, right? So I think that's kind of an important point to make. And kudos, like This is what we've been talking about doing, is investing in our infrastructure and making those changes. And then I also want to ask what seems like a very obvious question, but sometimes it's confusing for people who aren't as in the weeds as we are. When we talk about this as a realignment project and we talk about the right of way being moved, it's not just the right of way, like the whole street is being moved, right? So that the north and the south ends of Columbia that cross First Street, you're actually going to be able to go straight across instead of make a little jog, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Then as part of that downtown plan, it was the sheriff said, yeah, that intersection has actually been known to be a little dangerous with, you know, people trying to dart across and make that jog and can't quite see. So the last time that we went up to, I can never remember that, when we went up to Wenatchee and went to a demonstration from WashDOT, and they also have grants, safety grants, so that if you identify something that you feel is a safety concern, then they also have funds available to address those issues. Now, whether or not the sheriff's issues are concerns constitute the level of danger that they're looking for, we'll see, but it's another avenue that we've been exploring.
Hey, could I just suggest quick, unless you still need that information, I think Ben Johnson, if you can stop sharing your screen, we could get more people up and then we wouldn't have the hand raising issue.
Sure.
Thanks.
Let me do that. Here we go.
All right, Robert, you wanted to be, what'd you call yourself?
I'll just be the
jury
naysayer
lawyer?
here because I just want to make sure that, and Ken can correct me, the way this project ultimately would have to come about is Jack Clifton would have to agree to sell or donate his land, or two, we have to condemn it and go through that process to get the land. And the second problem is the west side landowners, the Dudleys and the Morrises, are going to get an increase of their property boundaries, which we'd have to do a boundary line adjustment, but we're going to be giving them additional property. And I'm not sure that can happen under our existing codes. So I just had to point out the legal issues before we get down to the fun ideas of moving Columbia Avenue over.
Well, that's not a deeded right of way. So what you'd end up doing is vacating that section of the road. And that would then make it, by operation of law, transferred to the adjoining property owner. So there's no problem with that. That's in 35.79.
That'll take care of the west side, the two property owners. But if we're going to move over onto Jack Clifton trustees parcel, we're going to have to take property. So either
we'd have to acquire it. We'd have to acquire it either voluntarily or through a condemnation process, one or the other, right?
Yeah. Okay. And that all is expensive.
Well,
We've been talking about this, so yeah, don't go crazy yet.
No. Well, because one of the ways, there's a lot of funding streams, and especially if you use federal funding, we're going to have to use a third party to do the appraisal and to do the negotiation of the property sale. So we do understand that there's a lot of nuances and there's a lot of agreements that have to take place in negotiations. So I think right now we're still just determining, what's the feasibility of it and what funding streams will we be able to use for this to see if we can even pay for it, including the acquiring of property. So, yes.
So it seems to me, one of the reasons I brought up the parking question is it seems to me if we maintain control of the current right of way that's on the west side there, that perhaps we could do instead of parallel parking, we could do nose-in parking and therefore increase the amount that's available simply by maintaining what we already own.
Part of I guess since we just came off the screen sharing, and again, it was just a conceptual drawing, but it did involve some development on each side of the road facing each other that would sit just off the sidewalks. So I guess that's something that's not off the table, but the conceptual drawing showed businesses lined up on both sides. Plus, as it turns out, the the owners on the southwest corner, so they had plans that they would be more than happy to use and create more businesses with the space that was going to be coming to their side.
Okay, I'll jump in with some answers. real quick. So Robert, your points aren't lost, and they're not new problems that we're considering. So developing the plan for how we would acquire that is something that we've been thinking about the whole time, especially because we need to do it right if we want to use federal transportation funds on that, and we would need to use federal transportation funds. And then figuring out how to dispose of the other side is something we've been talking to Ken about in advance of this too. To address Paul's question initially and then move into why we would want to dispose of the other side of the property. So right now the inventory for parking spaces has 5 potential parking spaces in that corridor. They're just kind of gravelly guerrilla areas, like you said. On the east side of the road, the fog line is curb tight to the sidewalk, and so there's no parking on that east side at all. With the proposal that Small Foster put together, there's parking on both sides. We didn't get to the detail of parking T's on there, but I imagine it'd be about 8 on both sides of the road, 7 or 8 on both sides of the road. So there would be an increase from that current 5. One of the reasons why we see this as a priority project is because of the traffic hazard that's there and the accidents that are there. It's also because of, and this is actually one of the questions that Seth and his group asked when they interviewed to do the downtown plan for us, is what's your favorite part of Stevenson? And many people's answer was the view from 2nd Street down Russell. And so if that's good, let's do more of that, is the concept. And that's why this project, the realignment of the right-of-way is prioritized there, because right now with the existing development at Big T's and the house that's on the hill there, there's not a lot of space to do curb tight road corridor with building walls on both sides. And so moving that roadway gives a flat space that can be developed in that way to create a corridor looking toward the water, much like Russell does.
Any other questions or comments? All right. I guess this is the part where we thank you for your time. I think I'm very excited by the progress that we've shown so far, especially considering the timeline from when our plan was shown off to residents to this point in the project is exciting and it's exhilarating. So thank you guys very much for your time.
Thanks for
Good to
having
be
us.
here. Thanks for having us. Take care.
Have a good night, you guys.
Thanks.
Okay. This is, do we need to officially open this public hearing, or are we just taking comments? What's our?
It was officially advertised as an official public hearing, so.
Okay, I would like to open the public hearing at 6:39. Do we have a staff report in this situation?
I don't have anything really prepared other than the survey responses, and they're broken out into so that you don't have too much confusion with the responses. So what was initially sent out on Friday was the city only responses. I updated that earlier in the week to include the outside city responses. And then there were 2 comments that came in today that were included in the packet as well, that was updated later this afternoon. With the comments that were received through the survey, a vast majority of those were received through Facebook. There were a few that were, so we received about 240 responses through Facebook, and then another 40 through the website. And I just want to also say that, you know, that then just is representative of those people who are on Facebook or who have access to technology as well. People can also submit comment through other means, but I just want to let you know that the venue through which the comments are received. And the people that responded that they were in the city, there was no verification. We did ask for addresses, but I have not gone through to verify whether those addresses are or not in the city. Some didn't respond, which is fine. It was just a survey to gain input. If we wanted to do something more, I think the most official way to go about something would be to do something on a ballot measure. But outside of that, this is a pretty informal way to get public comment outside of public hearings.
Okay, so I'm just checking because I am grabbing the latest version.
Mm-hmm.
Second.
And then Mary Repar has her hand up. Did you want me to let her?
Yes, please.
Okay. Mary, you are unmuted.
Thank you. I hear you discuss Mary Repar from Home Valley. The problem with fireworks and banning them just within city limits is that you have someone who sells them within city limits. And those fireworks are used outside your city limit. I can't tell you how many people complained up on Bone Road about these aren't fireworks, these are fire bombs that are going off. And they scare animals, they scare people. We used in Valley Park too, past midnight, and fortunately it was only for a couple of days, thank goodness. But I think you really need to seriously consider banning the sale of fireworks within the city limits. And we do not have a snowpack, as many of you may have noticed. This summer may be more dangerous than previous summers. So we don't need fireworks to celebrate. We can do light shows or something else. But Stevenson has at least one or two people who sell fireworks, and that needs to be stopped. I know they can buy it other places, but the county also needs to stop fireworks too. So I really urge, these are not your normal everyday sparklers and fireworks. These things make your heart thump when they go off. And as a veteran, I really, really want you to think about the PTSD of veterans and how they're affected in our community. Because I can tell you, when I lived within the city limits and these fireworks, fire bombs were going off, my heart went into a heartbeat whenever I heard one. And I don't know how many animals we had to find their owners afterwards. So I really urge you to give it some hard thought. I know that people want to fireworks, but is there a great need for it? I don't think so. And the costs outweigh the benefits by a large amount. Thank you.
Anne? Anne, and if you could remember to introduce yourself and where you live for the record, please.
Yes, can you confirm that you can hear me okay first, please?
I hear you just fine, thank you.
Wonderful. My name is Ann Mooters. I'm the manager for Crazy Race Fireworks. And I declined to give my actual address while I don't have a personal residence inside the city of Stevenson. We are property owners inside the city of Stevenson, and we are the proprietor of retail fireworks that Mary just mentioned. There is only one business inside the city of Stevenson limits that sells retail fireworks, and that would be my husband and myself, along with a very large crew of dedicated volunteers. I trust that the city council received the comments we sent via email, and I hope that the council has taken the opportunity to review those comments. It's difficult for me to kind of form my comments tonight because I'm not in the same room with you. I'm much more accustomed to looking at people face to face, but needless to say, I would like to, for the benefit of the public that is listening, and that may not have seen the written comments that we submitted, go over a few things. Of the respondents that answered the survey as inside the city limits, more than 1/2 were not in favor of banning fireworks. Additionally, when they were asked to indicate reasons as to why they were somewhat or very concerned, they listed items that already there are opportunities for law enforcement to address. And perhaps even in the city ordinance for city public works folks or your fire department to help address. Let's talk about littering. It's pretty easy to get that addressed during using an existing law. The other question that I felt was very important is that question 11, when it said, what actions would you prioritize to mitigate your concern? Only 51 people of the 172 people that answered the survey inside the city limits suggested a complete ban of fireworks. So I think that the survey put together by, I presume Liana put it together, clearly tells you what your constituency wants you to do, which is nothing. There is no need to ban fireworks inside the city. The other thing that I would like to bring up, specific kind of to what Mary was mentioning about the big bombs, these fireworks that we sell and the fireworks that are legal inside the city and the state of Washington are not bombs. They are artillery shells. We also sell sparklers, whistling kitty chasers, and all the things that are pretty popular among residents inside the city of Stevenson. When you look at the information, which I did provide in part in our comments from the state fire marshals, the big fireworks actually are less of a fire hazard than the small ones that people often buy for their kids. So for example, sparklers are really actually pretty dangerous compared to the big ones that Mary is referencing. Fountains. These are all things, there's a lot of misconceptions about them, and it's unfortunate that people spread those misconceptions. While I appreciate Mary's passion and I appreciate her willingness to comment here, I do wish that she had done a little bit of research prior to sharing information that may lead to unfounded concerns by the city council or by people listening. With that in mind, I can share a little bit of information in here. As the council will note in our written comments, the 10-year trend for fireworks incidents shows a pretty steep decline, and it just keeps going down. People are safe. People want to be safe. Are there criminals? Are there people that are not kind and are having a neighborly dispute, which in my personal opinion is what brought this to the city council's agenda anyways? Yes, there are, but banning fireworks for an entire city and a constituency that doesn't support it because of one person's neighborly dispute is not something that the council should entertain. We work really hard as small business owners and lifelong residents of this community to make a good business. We're clean, we're friendly, we support our community, we educate people when they come and buy fireworks with us. We talk to them about mowing your grass, getting a hose, using a bucket, being neighborly. Invite your neighbors over, right? Bring them over for a barbecue and enjoy fireworks that way. I would hate to see the city make a rash decision that is going to put a small business out of business based on very limited complaints. And to my knowledge, I don't know if Liana or someone else online can verify this, but to my knowledge, for one written complaint a year over the course of the last 5 to 6 years at the city. So Again, I apologize. I know that my comments were somewhat scattered there. I'm just much more in tune to sitting in the same room with you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, and I would urge the council to not take any action on banning fireworks.
Thank you, Ann. So one of the things that I noticed that on the comments that seemed to be the most recurring comment was the scofflaws with the hours. That was what my takeaway from that. My biggest takeaway, I guess. Okay, so before I get too far down the path here, is there anybody else that would like to speak to the council on this matter? Rob?
Hi, thanks. I missed the first couple commenters and come in halfway through Ann's comment. As you know, I've sent council an email as my position as fire chief on this. I think I also offer a unique perspective as a resident that does have a couple residents that like to set off mortars or whatever they're called at random times throughout the night. And also for the touchdowns at the Stevenson High School football games, home games. I've tried to educate my neighbors and they're appreciative of my comments. But the reality is unless the sheriff's office is in the neighborhood when they go off, it's very hard to determine where those incidents come from. And they're not happening during the state mandated time span during 4th of July and New Year's. The football game fireworks are probably the easiest to maintain and take care of by existing processes. We have a permit process at the city for a special event. We've presented that to the individual, and to my knowledge, they seem to entertain that. Yet I haven't seen a permit come across yet, but we haven't had football since I made contact with that individual. So I think it's very hard to try to really get good data on it. I mean, it's all emotion. Like I said, I have a couple neighbors that like to do it randomly, and one neighbor behind me likes to do it very randomly. So I kind of feel, from a residential statement that, for the most part, I've seen over the last couple of years of people being respectful. They usually shut it down, around midnight during 4th of July. I did observe this last year that there was quite a bit of early fireworks early in the evening and not as much late. And there was only 1 or 2 days, at least around my area. So I don't know if people self-regulated due to COVID or just weren't into it. But, as my official standpoint from the fire chief's position is, I think my advisement would be to think about where the city limits lie. Where I live up off of Chesser, the city limits jag. Sometimes they're right across the street. Sometimes they're a couple streets over. For the most part, the north side of Groper Road by the high school, one side is county, one side is city. Going up Maple Way, the Frank Johns V, you guys all know about that. It's going to be hard to enforce. Like, if we cut off, if city council bans in Stevenson, it's not going to help my situation as a resident, because 100 yards away you're in the county. So it creates an issue that I have to play with when we have recreational fire burns during the summer as fire chief. That's why I try to coordinate with the county on that. So if I inadvertently lift the recreational fire ban, which I did this year early, and we had some communication errors with the county, then it floods the sheriff's dispatch center with calls on, can I burn, can I not burn? Well, I see that same thing happening with the fireworks ban. We've seen it. You only have to look down to the city of Vancouver. They have the same situation where fireworks are prohibited in the city of Vancouver, but yet they're allowed in the county and other municipalities within the county that border the city of Vancouver. And it's just a nightmare to try to enforce. So that's my urging there is think about the enforcement. Is it really obtainable? Is it something that you can successfully enforce with our current law enforcement agreement? And then if it isn't, where is the enforcement going to land? Well, I can tell you that the enforcement lands for illegal burns to the fire department. We have to run on those illegal fires, and we have to tell our neighbors that they have to put their fire out. And I have the undue burden, and my fire officers have the undue burden to sometimes have to recommend that our neighbors get cited. And that is something that is very hard to do when you have to cite somebody that you might end up having to interact with at the local grocery store. It's not comfortable. It's just part of the job. But you put some of these restrictions and laws or ordinances that we put into place. I don't know if that is expressed to you guys enough or very well. I know I haven't really brought that up in the past, but it would be something of a concern moving forward with this type of a decision. So that's my input from a resident's side and the fire chief's side. So I know that I don't like to mix those two, but sometimes you have to. So yeah, that's all I have. Thank you for letting me talk.
Thanks, Rob. Anybody else? All right, we'll close the public hearing portion at 6:59. I also like to remind everyone that oftentimes the way these public hearings go is we have prepared an ordinance that city council can say we're not interested and will not vote for it, or we are interested and will vote for it. That is not the case. We do not have an ordinance. This was clearly, or was meant to just provide a forum for the public to weigh in and also for you guys to discuss it. But at this point, there is nothing for you to vote on. So I like I said, it seemed like the majority of the comments were outside of the hours that you should be lighting off fireworks. The enforcement issue is something that I'm concerned about as well. And then I also have a lot of faith in self-regulation. There was a couple of years ago that it was too dry, way too dry. And as a family, we decided it was irresponsible of us to light off fireworks just because of how dry it was. So we did buy some and they sat until we could fire them off at New Year's Eve. And as a family, we do enjoy our fireworks.
I've got a quick question that on the letter that Anne sent us, the graph that she referenced, where it shows that there's been a drop in fireworks related incidences. There was a gigantic drop in the first year of that draft, going from 2009 to 2010, especially with fires. There was just a huge drop there. And then it's been, as compared to 2009, it's been relatively flat with a slight decrease. I was wondering if anyone knows why that drop occurred. Was there a new legislation on the state level or something that changed firework laws in between 2009 and 2010?
I don't recall. I know that the state has certain, they're the primary clearinghouse for fireworks laws. But as far as a change of law at that time, I don't remember anything specific.
Yeah, I did a quick Google search and I spent maybe 10 minutes looking and didn't find anything. And I'd also like to point out that the Eagle Creek fire was started by one of those little smoke bombs, which is one of the fireworks that people routinely buy for their kids. So, it doesn't have to be one of the big ones to cause a big problem. And I guess while I'm opining, I'll also say that I am a huge fan of fireworks, especially the big public displays. I just love watching fireworks. It's something about how my brain works. I really get a kick out of it. But there's also safety issues. If it's as simple as an individual, if the only damage you're going to do is to yourself or your property, then hey, have at it. But it's when the damage occurs on someone else's property, you start a wildfire, for example, that's where government bodies should be involved.
I'd like to say that, one, I was really impressed with the information that Anne provided in her letter. It was very well thought out. She did a lot of research. She made a great effort to make certain that we understood this situation better, that we're better informed to make this decision or any decision that we decide to make. So kudos to her. Also kudos to Liana for putting that survey on the Facebook page and wherever else you did it. And I appreciate that people took the time to provide their responses. I mean, this really helps us make better, more informed decisions. So I appreciate those efforts too from the several hundred people who responded. It's really interesting how the data is split. And we as counselors have to consider both sides. And this is a difficult one to decide because both sides are pretty even in their beliefs about this. So, I mean, my first thought is, I personally am not a fan of fireworks for my own personal reasons. But I also appreciate that it is a celebration and that it's a tangible way that people can celebrate their beliefs and their holidays. So I certainly don't want to put a kibosh on it. So for those people who really do want us to do something about this, maybe it's just visiting the hours that they're available. And the thing is that whatever we decide, it's not our job to enforce. And I recognize that. And maybe it won't get enforced. I don't know. But I think that as a body representing the citizens of the city, that we have to do what's right and in our realm of decision making. So do we maybe consider cutting down the hours that they're allowed to shoot off fireworks or to do whatever you do with fireworks? Is that something anybody even wants to consider on the council? I'm posing this to council members.
Yeah, I'm not interested just because I think it's regulated by the state well enough, and I don't think we need to create, an extra layer. That's just my thoughts. But I also don't think the city should be banning the fireworks until the county takes up this position because we're within the county anyway. That's just. I think it means a non-issue. We've got a lot of stuff on our agenda tonight.
And then I also saw in those comments that someone mentioned, I don't know how many, but maybe a public education, hey, be the good neighbor. Please follow these rules. And maybe we'll have Ann. I saw in Ann's letter that they do have public outreach with their customers. So I see Rob wants to chime in again too, but maybe in a moment we'll get Ann back in and see what her thoughts are on including when you're allowed to set off fireworks with their purchases.
Mm-hmm.
So that there is no actual regulation. It's just showing our concern for the issues that have been brought forward.
Mm-hmm.
Amy?
I think the survey was super helpful also. And yeah, it looks pretty evenly split to me, which is important information, and to me warrants us not taking a whole lot of action, really. I love the idea of an educational piece component to it. And Anne, I believe at our last meeting did offer to distribute flyers, like if the city provided her with some educational information. And Anne can obviously weigh in on that, but I'm pretty sure she said she would be happy to give those to their customers. And I have to agree with Rob's comments and Robert's as well about there's kind of no point for us to do something as a city if we're not in alignment with the county on this. It's just, it feels, I don't know, a little pointless. It's really not going to solve the problem, you know? It's just my
Thank
two
you.
cents.
So Rob said that if you could take him off mute, Leon, he says he does have some info for Paul's question about the dramatic drop.
Rob,
So
you're
yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Yeah, I went back and looked at that graph too after Paul mentioned that, and I don't remember the time frame, but that data is driven off of what we call NFIRS reporting, and that's an acronym, and I don't know what it means. I think it's National Fire Incident Reporting System. Actually, that might be exactly what it means. And there was a change in the NFIRS reporting language at one point that separated out fireworks data from other types of fire. I don't remember exactly when that happened, but that might be that time frame. So that could be an explanation for that. Just to kind of give you guys a little bit of background, every year fire departments are asked to report to NFIRS, but it's not required. So that's as good as you can get from the data. The Washington State Patrol gathers and publishes a yearly annual fire report from all that data. So that's where the data comes from on that. I thought that would be helpful for you guys, and maybe a possible explanation is that to that drop.
Thank you. Anne?
Yes, I would like to just address the public education campaign. So since we first opened, we used to stuff the fireworks bags when people would buy from us with a flyer that said, here's the legal dates and times, and here's some safety information. And in the age of technology, we were starting to feel like people weren't really looking at that. And so now we just post it front and center on our stand in the summer and then on our trailer in the winter. And we encourage people, hey, take a picture. Here's when you can legally light them off. And it's right there on your cell phone. The other thing that we also did this year around New Year's, because for the 4th of July, the time period is much longer that you can purchase and use them. And so people sometimes get confused because they think they have the same amount of time for New Year's Eve. And so we were very careful this year to express the actual time that you could do it for New Year's Eve on our social media page. We're getting a really substantial following, and people have appreciated that. So on our own, through our own efforts, we are educating the public, and we would be happy to work with the city to provide additional public education materials. I think we can come up with something that is appropriate and addresses all the aspects that we need to.
Thank you, Ann. Anybody else want to chime in?
I'd like to say one more thing. My primary concern with fireworks is at the 4th of July, not at New Year's, and it's fire. I think we're all on board with kind of like, doesn't feel like we really want to do anything at this point. However, I do think that everyone needs to be ready that at some point or another, we're going to have an extraordinarily dry, hot June. And if the conditions are just going to be such that it's crazy dangerous to do it, and we may have to put some sort of emergency moratorium on it for a temporary one, just based purely on weather conditions. But for now, I think maybe it's best left alone.
I love that. Thank you. I'm sorry, Scott. May I speak?
I want to make sure that we're all on a general consensus that there's no real need for any real action except maybe the public education portion of it, and understanding that we might have to take action at some point if we feel like the risks are too great.
Hey, Scott, this is Rob. I think I can still talk. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah, we got you.
In direct relation to that, what Paul just brought up and you echoed, I believe, and this might where Ken might help out, I believe to be able to do an emergency moratorium dependent on weather, which I am actually been in favor of having it as a toolbox. I believe you still have to write up some type of ordinance or some type of action, and it still goes into that 1 year waiting period that gives the fire chief or the fire marshal the ability to put on a use ban due to weather, or it could be anything. I think you still have to do that and then wait the year. That's my input on that.
I can weigh in on that. Rob's right. Any restriction that limits firework use to anything less than the state provides has a 1 year basically delay, and that would include authorizing the fire marshal to ban fireworks under some weather conditions. Washougal recently, now a couple of years ago, revised their fireworks ordinance. They decided to use what's called a safe and sane standard for fireworks, which is sort of a middle ground. It's not altogether ban, but it puts the fireworks more like Oregon has, as far as fireworks can't shoot up high in the air, and there's limits on the types of fireworks they allow. And at the same time, they did, like Rob is suggesting, they gave their fire marshal authority to essentially suspend any firework use during extreme weather conditions. And they haven't implemented that, but it was contained in the ordinance that adopted safe and sane fireworks.
And Liana, can you unmute Ann if she's muted again?
And you should be unmuted.
Okay. I was just wanted to address Paul's comment. I believe it was Paul. So one of the things right now, the port during the 4th of July, they allow folks to go down there and light off fireworks. And every year at the conclusion of our sales period for the night of the 4th of July, my volunteers and my family and I go down to the port just to kind of do extra pickup, because there are people who are not considerate and they will leave their litter around. And so we work hard to try to mitigate those concerns. And even at that time, we educate folks. So I think there are some opportunities. The year in particular that Scott referenced, when it was really, really hot, it was a hot year. And I can tell you, self-regulation took control for everybody. It was our worst sales year ever. People that did Stop and Shop said, thanks so much for being here. We're gonna save these for New Year's Eve. So we really do have a community of people who understand and say, I'm still gonna buy them, but maybe I'm gonna do 1 or 2 right here in my yard, and then I'm gonna save the rest.
Thank you, Ann. So I guess we can not close the books entirely on this. Take a look at adding, as Rob said, adding something to our toolbox if we feel that need. If we want to pursue that, I agree with Ann that maybe that's not going to be 100% necessary, but Rob likes it. I don't mind it. So we can bring that, we can kind of keep that in the mix.
I would encourage you, as Rob said, to work with the county and see if you can't, see if the county would adopt a similar, process for restricting fireworks in those extreme weather events. Because, Stevenson, as you're well aware, is it's in the middle of Skamania County, and it's a very irregular city limits, and so enforcement would be very difficult unless the county was to also have some reasonable restrictions. Because I don't know, like Rob's saying, it would be really hard to tell, if you're in the Frank Johns V, if it's somebody within the V or outside the V in the city limits, it'd be very hard. And Washougal is a different story because it's isolated for the most part from the rest of Clark County, but you guys are smack in the middle, and then you have this weird property line that would make enforcement really tough. So I think it might be a good idea, if you're going to consider that, to maybe work with the county to see if there'd be a way to have their own fire officials do a similar thing.
And I think that's probably a pretty reasonable approach.
Yeah, can we do a straw poll or direct staff to move forward on that? How do you want to do that?
Okay, so I guess, would you guys be in favor of working with the county first on providing this tool for the fire chiefs?
And to be clear, we're talking about a tool for emergency weather
Moratorium.
acts, right? Yeah.
All right.
And well, to be clear, that would probably fall to the fire chiefs, and I wanted to make sure that Rob would be cool with being the bad guy.
I'm the bad guy in a lot of situations. I think having the tool is great. I have a lot more other tools that I selectively need to use sometimes. So it is something we've talked about at the fire chief's level. And I've talked about it with Marlon, and it might be something good to take up with Tim Elsey and Marlon and I can't remember the new guy's name. He's not new. Arnold Bell, moving forward and seeing what we can do there. And I can be involved and give Liana input on that too as well, offline.
Scott, may I just mention, so Rob, I think the thing that you need to keep in mind that the way the retail sales work, and we might not be the only game in town in the future, right? There are a lot of organizations that consider fireworks sales, but I think that you need to make sure that someone in the fireworks industry is a player at that table, because there is a large expense associated with retail fireworks sales that business owners would not be able to recoup if people were given a ultimate power without any sort of guidelines to follow or oversight. I know you, Rob, I trust you, but who comes after you, and whether or not they also have a bee in their bonnet about fireworks because of a personal issue with their neighbor, that could be very damaging to small businesses. And I think we I would ask that you really consider that, and you need to try to be very careful about that.
Good comment. All right. Really appreciate the discussion and your candor, everyone. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to the situation updates. It has been an interesting week. I was just reading about, what is it, SB 5115, where did it go? A lot of support today in Olympia, a groundswell of support. I know there's been a lot of organizations here in town that have been circulating templates to ask for support and to send support to our reps and our senator. Senator King was one of the ones that spearheaded the effort, and he's from our area. So there is a lot of concern of what these businesses are going to do. And I've been pretty vocal about this. The fact that restaurants are shut down or might be allowed to go to 25%, and yet you go to some of these other stores and they're packed, absolutely packed. So the restaurants are really taking it on this. And the fact that there isn't even a third option for an eventual 50%, it's concerning. It's a real hard thing to think about, that we have local businesses that have been here forever, two generations have been working here, and they are in jeopardy. So it was the article I read was from Seattle Times. They said it's one of the most supported bills, showed the most support in history, but it's not a home run. There's still a lot of opposition that has to be overcome. So we'll see how that pans out, but it does sound like there are some Democrats ready to break ranks and tell the governor that it's time to be a little more cognizant of of what's going on. I also have read that there are efforts to put this type of control, take it away from the governor and put it back with the legislature, and get away from this emergency power that he continues to ride and hold ultimate power over these decisions. So it's an interesting week. And I think we even had local businesses say, is there anything that we can do on a local level that will supersede what the governor's doing? And sounds like insurgents. I don't know how we feel about all that, but there's rumblings right now. We have businesses that are really struggling and they're getting ready to color outside the box. So hoping that this will proceed in a way that's business friendly. And then the other question is, big push for vaccines. What does that mean in the grand scheme of things? At some point, do you decide that there's been blanket, like what percentage of population has now had the vaccine? Now what? What do we get for that? Do we get more percentage? Do the masks come off? I'm really curious to see what the end game is on the vaccination programs. So, and then the other part, as far as, it'd be interesting to find out how many vaccines have happened. I'm not sure what the reporting is like. The Veterans Home in the Dalles has made vaccines available to employees of RadComp. So I don't know what the reporting is like, that if they report back and say, oh, and by the way, even though the vaccine was administered in the Dalles, it was a Skamania County resident. So I'm curious to see how those numbers are presented for our edification.
One thing I have to add is that the restrictions on the Open Public Meetings Act and Public Records Act have been extended basically until the COVID state of emergency is lifted. So there's no more month to month. So that means that we'll be doing virtual meetings at least until that state of emergency is lifted. Again, it depends on what phase we're in as far as whether or not we'd be able to meet in person and meet the various other requirements. But in any case, we will still are required whenever we meet to at least have a phone call-in component to our meeting, but we will also have planned on continuing the live streaming through YouTube.
So I'm sure that I'm not the only one that has noticed that a meeting where I have 3 monitors and a computer in front of me and can still look at you and I don't have to go anywhere, that's going to be hard to break away from. To sit at the table there without a computer or without 3 monitors. I guess I'm allowed to have a computer, but it's going to be an interesting to look back and see the social experiment that this has become. Before it was, yeah, I can work, you can work from home, but you get to work, you come to work, or if you're going to pitch me an idea, I do expect you to sit across from my desk and you're going to pitch me that idea. And a lot of those barriers are being dropped right now. So will be interesting to see if those ideological thoughts creep back in again, or if there's going to be some dramatic shifts in the way that we act in the business community. Okay, Carl.
Hey, hello. We are going over the wastewater treatment plant update, and no news is good news. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Everything is going very well. As you can see, or if you did read prior to having it in front of you right now, no influent or effluent violations for the year of 2020. So we'll take that. Really, the focus lately has been on Rock Creek lift station, the design and the footprint of that. We're kind of working with the county to show them how much property we're asking for additional right-of-way of. So the focus has really been on that for the past month, but everything down at the plant's going very well. I don't think I ever mentioned his name. I just call it the staff, but Ian Lofberg is our wastewater treatment operator. That's where he's at every day. So shout out to him for keeping that going. He is also working with our industrial users very well. So he's grown a trust with them. And things are going good. Things are going good. Got the Department of Ecology progress report, the final one for 2020, and that was followed up with a phone call from Steve Ogle. Usually a phone call from Department of Ecology is not welcome, but in this case it was. So he just wanted to give a shout out to everybody and say thanks for the effort. You know, they got some skin in the game, if you will, so they want to see us succeed. And that is the wastewater treatment plant update.
Carl, do you remember what day it was? Because Carl said, yeah, we had, what was it, 1 million gallons come through the
Almost
treatment
1 million
plant?
gallons came in late December, but with the last rain event in, it was the 9th of this month of January. So you'll see that in our next report. We got just over 1 million gallons in the 24-hour period, but that was with,
mind-blowing.
6 to 8 inches of rain. Yeah, so Rock Creek lift station cannot come soon enough because that is absolutely at capacity. Those 2 pumps were babysat overnight to make sure they're running, not clogging up. And they did clog up. We got a little bit behind at one point as far as wet well levels. I don't want to dip too far in the weeds, but anyways, it all ended up well and good. But yes, we need to get that lift station online.
And on that topic, at the next council meeting, there's going to be a flurry of paperwork related to that project. So there's going to be a contract with Wallace for the design phase and construction engineering phase for all of the lift station, as well as the Rock Creek and Cascade Interceptor. We're also working on, again, like Carl mentioned, additional right-of-way for Rock Creek. And there's also going to be a, the interim financing agreement that we need to have in place. And all of this has to be in place before we can go out to bid. And our plan is to go out to bid for that project late February, early March. And so these are all just the requirements that we need to have done for not only the EDA, but also USDA RD. So our financing packages before we can get that going.
And yeah, and while you're on that, Leona, an additional project that was recognized with what we came to know as Rock Creek Lake, where Rock Creek Drive was backing up due to a clogged up storm outflow. That storm outflow happens to run right through the property of Kanaka Creek Lift Station. So while we are there digging, we would like to repair that. However, that work is going to come under a separate shoreline permit and we've decided to go with an emergency shoreline permit. So that permitting process does not hold up the permitting process that is already going with Rock Creek Lift Station. So that all came about 2 weeks ago. So fairly recent. We're working with Ben on that one, our Ben, if you will, Ben Shoemaker as well. So.
Hey, Carl, I would like an education on the water treatment plant and the efforts, your daily efforts there. So expect an email from me like in the next week, just trying to reach out and arrange that. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm glad that if I can jump all over you, I'll stomp all over your response there, Carl. That has been an ongoing invitation to come down and see the operation there, especially if you haven't been there as a new city council member. But then I spoke to Carl not too long ago. I had a chance to go up to the water plant, and that's really cool. And it doesn't stink. So, and he was fine with providing tours of that operation too. And, you know, as one of the cornerstones of the city council, we are stewards of our infrastructure, specifically water and wastewater. So being able to wrap your head around it, and not only that, but see the work that our city crew has to go through to make those great numbers. No violations for the entire year. And that is something that I don't want to gloss over before we jump out of this segment, because that is truly something to be celebrated. So absolutely reach out to Carl, set up a time that he can meet you up there. And keep in mind that no more than 2 of you at any time.
Right.
Amy, did you have your hand up?
Well, yeah, but Scott basically just said it. I didn't want to let this discussion close without being like, holy crap, this is huge news. Like, we need to celebrate, you know, there's been so much effort and so much work and so much, you know, time put into this project. And I think it really is a huge accomplishment for you and Ian and our staff and the whole team. It's big. And so I just wanted to say, like, you know, yeah, good job.
It's tough to celebrate during COVID. Maybe we'll have a Zoom celebration. I'm being very snarky, but yeah, I mean, the success has kind of gotten lost a little bit in all these other projects that are piling on. So yeah, it's a good thing. We're not overlooking that. I'm not trying to sell it short or anything. Just trying to get through a long council meeting, right? But yeah, thank you for recognizing it. It is a huge deal, but it has gotten lost a little bit in the shuffle, if you will.
Well, I perhaps there's some urging that we could do on our part, and I don't know what exactly, but like literally, I think you and your team do need to take a pause and talk about it and congratulate each other and celebrate, you know, and I don't know how you do that, but from a leadership standpoint, it's really important to celebrate the successes.
Agreed.
And then the other part is, I don't know if you caught that in Liana's chiming in there. This project's actually getting going now. Been a lot of talking and all the, what do we call it? I woke up that, I go, what do we call that? A charrette? Where we all got together and beat around some ideas and how we could value engineer and different ways we can do that. This project is actually getting started, and the best part is that our foundation right now is better than we expected. And there was a time that when DOE would call, it's like, and now it's not that way anymore. So yeah, just to get to your point again, that great work down at the plant. Now then. All right, Ben.
At the December Planning Commission meeting, one of the planning commissioners that attended your December Planning Commission meeting brought up the petition to vacate the portion of right-of-way that connects to Rock Creek at the end of Iman Cemetery Road. And the Planning Commission discussed that, and they asked to be involved, offered their service in helping to vet how that goes. I think the best use of them will be to either lead on or vet the replacement plan. So if we have that plan about how funds are expended, Planning Commission weighing in on those locations and how they relate to the surrounding community. So they also offered Commissioner Mike Beck to sit on the subcommittee that Paul and Robert agreed to be part of, if you'd accept that help.
So my experience with the Planning Commission is that this is exactly the sort of thing that they're good at. They're great at getting into the weeds on things, and I welcome the help.
And Paul, you're on that subcommittee, right? Cool. Yeah, I think it's a great idea too.
Is that enough direction, Ben? Do you? Okay. Okay, sounds good.
I think I feel that there's consensus. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't hear like, wait a
Right.
minute. Yeah. Wait a minute. All right. I guess I'm up. We have the draft committee and board appointments for the upcoming year for your consideration and potential approval. If you guys had a chance to take a look.
Could I just ask, because I don't remember where these were on the last time, but there were a bunch of people who were serving who were not in city, were no longer residents of the city. Has that been cleaned up?
Yeah, the Board of Adjustments is who hears appeals to zoning administrator decisions and who reviews variances from the zoning code. So there is no residency requirement for that. At the last meeting, Dan McGill, Mary Rapar, and Bradley Seehafer were still noted here. Dan McGill is still there and Mary Rapar is still there. They've been active and valuable members of that board in the past. And so I didn't see any reason to suggest getting rid of them. We did talk to Bradley and he agreed to resign. And so we've got replacements in place for that already. Somebody who had requested to be on it during the last vacancy. So.
Thank you.
All right. So if there's no other comments, I would approve it. I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the council and staff committee board and appointments for 2021 as presented.
I'll second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call for the votes, please. Amy?
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Annie?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, so before we go too much further, I had Liana on the phone today, and there's every once in a while we'll get comment on a project that we're working on that I'm looking for some input on you guys, from you guys, to make sure that we know why there's these different items are in front of us. So I'm going to work with Liana and Ben so that, especially if it's something related to an ongoing project like the Downtown for Success or the Outlook or the Overlook project, that when these items come to you, they are in context. So you understand, can be reminded, this is part of this ongoing process that we've been working towards. And then the other part that I was concerned about was, is the packet enough? And so Liana heard the comment that it would be great if we could have the packet on the Friday before, and she heard that and has accommodated you guys on that. But depending on the depth of the information, it's coming at you fast and really fast. And are we making it easy enough for you to be prepared to make a decision that doesn't feel like it's in a vacuum? So that the two concepts kind of work hand in hand with me. Make sure that the narrative and the reminder of why we're working on something is in the mix, but maybe it's an extension of the two-touch system that we're working on some of these bigger votes, that you've got the packet on Friday, you've had a chance to read it over, and absolutely we encourage you to pick up the phone or email and set up a meeting with any of the staff that are part of the whatever that process is. But we only meet once a month, so maybe that's an extension of the two-touch system, is that we have a chance to really hash it out and fill in as many gaps as we can, so that not only can we get a chance to start the process, but by that second time we're fully prepared and understand, and it makes sense. So I really just wanted to get some feedback from you guys to make sure that the meetings are presented in such a way that you feel comfortable and not pressured to try to wrap your head around something that, because I had to make that admission several times on planning, where Ben would come with us with an idea, and I started this on this committee because I needed to find a way to get involved, and what you were telling me right now is blowing my hair back. Ben, you need to back it up and help me understand just a little bit more. So I hope, and if you guys tell me that nope, the way that things are set up now currently is fine, then we'll keep that going. But I just really wanted to get some feedback from you, the council, to make sure that the meetings are the best that they can be. But not only that, that we can make the best of your time, so that we're not cringing at the idea of finishing up at 10 every week. Because the last thing I want to ask you guys to do is to go twice a month.
I would say, just being the newest council member and not having a historical perspective on many of these decisions that we're needing to make, a Friday deadline before the meeting is not enough time for me. Considering also that we all have very busy lives with other things and other important things, I too am wondering how I can be better prepared to make a decision, to actually participate in a vote confidently. And but I don't have a solution to offer. So I'm just going to listen to what others have to say to see if something that is presented is also something that resonates with me.
So some of the bigger projects, they don't drop on Friday. These are things that, like I said, I want to work with staff to make sure that the ongoing narrative is such that you don't feel like you need to cram from between Friday and Thursday. We'll make a conscious effort on that part. But also, because we only meet once a month, there's lots of things that come flying at us, to the point where we do have to say, all right, it's Tuesday, it's 12. We're done adding to the packet now. Mm-hmm. But there are some bigger items that, we almost lost the Russell Street project because somebody didn't understand the implications of a no vote. And that years of effort. We had to call Jenny on the phone on vacation and say, hey, we really need you to vote right now. Mm-hmm. So the big ones that there can't be any misunderstanding and are important as part of a process, an ongoing process. Those are the ones that we'll work together to make sure that you don't feel like you're cramming and trying to fit it all in, like you say, within your busy lives. But then also expect that you might, and Ilana and I talked about that today too. We'll work on a monthly email before the meeting. By the way, this is really important and really need you to be prepared on this particular item. For example, we've got some votes that are going to be coming up that are really important for the funding of this project that we were just patting ourselves on the back for. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things I've been working on as we start into the new year, is to make these meetings as efficient and as effective as possible.
So is there, Amy, go ahead. I don't want to take all those space.
You go. I can wait.
Is there an effort made at the city to have like maybe a collective binder, like on a project like Russell Street, Was there a binder of data collected so that so that it could be given to me as a new council member to research the project's progress, the historical progress of that historical progress of that project, so that I'm better prepared? Does that exist?
That's a great question. I don't know that it's in a collected with a bow on it. You could probably be it's over there and it's over there, and it's a lot of obviously there's paperwork generated with all of these things, but I guess I'll let Liana answer since she.
We have digital files that are compiled. We also have some paper files that are also compiled, but like for example, throughout these processes, we have 50% design, 75, 90% design, and so on, but they're never compiled in one. Here's the progression here, and here's the notes for anyone to kind of just hand over their working drafts.
Is it even possible to have something like that? I'm just thinking, so I'm the newest council member. After tonight, we're going to have another new council member, and we rotate our positions every 4 years, possibly. Is that something we should consider so that the new incoming council members are better prepared to make confident decisions?
And so that's where I would point them to previous council meetings and previous council minutes, and packets and everything for all of that information, because that shows the history of progression. It shows the discussion. It shows a lot of what happens, and it's all online. I also encourage you to just reach out to staff and have that conversation on what's going on. One note that I did write down. I think when I first got here, I tried to do a weekly update on the sewer project. I tried to do a blog, and that lasted all of maybe a month or two. So, I mean, I did write down weekly project updates on Fridays, but writing it down and actually implementing it are two different things. And we'll probably, we could probably talk more about that we have a department head meeting every Monday. I mean, we can kind of probably hash out some different ways on how we can do it and how we can make it easily updatable, but also not just for council, but also for the public. I mean, this is part of why we went through those transparency projects or proposals, was to see, how can we communicate all of this better? And that does go to like the capital improvement program that COVID kind of threw off track. That does show kind of the history of where we're at and what the plan is. So there are things in process, but right now the best avenue to get the most up-to-date information is to give us a call, because sometimes things are moving so fast. We might have that binder, but it's 6 months out of date because we've just gone so fast, and got sidetracked on other things.
And the packet is a good point, because I kind of go, we have to have 400 pages in the packet. But when it's electronic like this, and that is the best collected source of, because we are trying to create a funnel that you can dive into to kind of catch you up. So that is the most, preparing for the meetings. Now, whether or not the indexing on that. So yeah, remember when we were talking about that Russell project, was that August last year or was that July? So yeah, that might be the only, but those are the best sources of catching up on information. And city staff likes to talk to you guys. I don't know if you believe that, but they'd be more than happy to visit with you. Amy?
Well, I guess I'm doing a lot of congratulating tonight, but I want to congratulate Liana because the packets are so much easier to use than they have been in the past. The digital linking of the content makes it a million times faster and easier for me to be prepared, but also then to stay with the right documents throughout the meeting. So that's huge and really great. Then Ben had a document that I really liked that he shared, I don't know how long ago, a couple months ago, maybe. Ben, I don't know if you remembered, it was almost like kind of Venn diagram, like where you were showing where the different phases of projects and you were identifying where we were in those phases. So it would be really helpful. Like tonight when we were talking about the Columbia Avenue realignment, one slide in that presentation or a little blurb in the packet that showed like that diagram for these big projects would be really helpful. I'd love to see that on the wastewater treatment plant, any of the big projects, to just keep track of like, where are we? What have we done? Where are we now? What's still to come? I think would provide some of the context that Annie is talking about and help all of us just keep track. So that would be a kind of a concrete suggestion that I think is probably pretty easy to implement. Yeah, that's my request.
And I also talked to Leon about dusting off the Gantt chart idea again, because it does, first off, it provides some gravity to the things that we're working on, really highlights the workload that the staff is performing, and keeps us focused on moving projects along. And like I said, I want to keep that narrative hot on these are the things that we're working on. So if we're talking about zoning changes, it's because it came out of the housing needs assessment plan. And we talked about that and we went over the results, and these are the things that we decided we were going to do about it. And now we're doing those things. And don't forget, it started out on this thing that we felt was very valuable and important at the time. And here we are continuing to march down the road with those marching orders. Paul.
So I think Annie will agree with me on this, and perhaps Robert and Amy as well, if they think back long enough. But I would see value in training for new council members.
And we're working on that.
Right. I remember the first time that I was asked to approve vouchers. My thought was, well, what's a voucher? So, and I think that would help the meeting flow along.
Yep. Leon and I have been working on that. Annie sent some thoughts. It's probably going to be a collection of links for the most part, but the very first, before a new city council member's very first meeting, there will be a meeting with, well, whoever, even if it's an election and there's been a couple of replacements, there will be a meeting with Liana and myself and the new city council members, so we can, brass tacks. You're stewards of an infrastructure of these items. These are important. This is how you pay for it. This is the money that they bring in. No more than 3 of you at an occasion. This is what a voucher is. This is how you'll know what to sit when we're allowed to sit with each other. So just so that, because you take the plunge and you put your name on a ballot to hopefully be elected, and go through everything that involves. And now it's your first day at school. And how can we make you, again, efficient and effective and ready to get to work?
One comment about Amy's Gantt suggestion is that I also think that would be a valuable tool for the public to be able to readily access, to see what we are doing, what the city is doing, what it is accomplishing, and what the timeline is for all of these big projects. It's just kind of a report card for the city, I think. And transparency.
There you go. Okay, so unless you guys have more thoughts on that, detour complete as far as from my point of view. All right, so this brings us back to Liana for the first reading of the Zettler Powers Road vacation.
I meant to put Ben's name there. No. So this is a follow-on from the public hearing that you had at the last meeting, from the resolution that you approved in November. And so this is the vacation of the Zettler Powers. Zettler and Powers are the owners of the 2 lots. And so this is the street in the Mears addition that was never really paved, never really improved. And so council gave direction for us to go ahead and move forward with vacating it, and with the condition that there was a covenant put on the property that if lots 18 and 19 were ever sold separately, that access would be provided to, I believe it was a lot 19. So that's included in the ordinance that's presented. And it is also vacating the street entirely to lot 18, because in the documents that were presented at the public hearing and in the council packet, the owner of lot 14 gave up his interest in that pieces of that property.
And because the road, as it turned out, was wholly contained within lot 18, and the statute says that when that's the case, it's not vacated to adjacent property. It's vacated to the property that had the entire road within it.
Feels pretty cut and dry.
Mhm.
Plus, it's kind of a follow-on. It was from direction from the last time we visited this, so it is technically the first read. But if you guys are ready,
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 2021-1170 regarding the vacation of an unnamed street in the Meagers edition.
I'll second.
all right. We have a first and a second. Is there any other discussion? Roll call for the vote, please. Amy.
Aye.
Robert.
Aye.
Paul.
Aye.
Annie.
Hi.
Thank you. All right, next up, this one you did get Ben's name on. Second reading for the R3 zoning text amendments. Ben, can you, I'm not incorrect on this, right? This is part of that housing needs assessment?
Correct.
Okay. So there was comment that this might be pointing towards a big plan. It is. It is part of a larger plan. So, again, meeting up with those, what we found in our housing needs assessment. So, did you guys have any questions for Ben that would help you help your vote tonight?
I have a couple that were posed to me by residents. So I'll just start in the order that they were given to me. So, what does it mean to pass the ordinance? I mean, how does it impact other areas, or doesn't it, or does it?
To the extent that they may be adjacent to the property, it could impact what the neighborhood could become, but it doesn't have any regulatory impact on those areas.
Okay.
This ordinance specifically, there are some concepts in the zoning code, zone transition areas. And so there are some wider setbacks for, let's see if we can follow. If your property is zoned C1 commercial, for example, and it's adjacent to a residential district, then that property is subject to the setbacks of that adjacent district. And so if they were increasing, in this case, those very few areas where C1 is adjacent to another district would change along with it. I believe that's in the ED education district also.
Okay. So does this only impact this particular area that we're focused on now? Or will it, or could it impact other districts in town down the road? Is this a template that's being used to alter other areas?
Absolutely.
Okay. And
so
what's the purpose of that?
The R3 zoning code change that we're talking about tonight is to enact that recommendation from the housing needs assessment. So where they're saying that, hey, your 4,000 square foot minimum lot size could really be 2,000 square feet. Planning Commission, in reviewing the different parts of this increasing residential building capacity grant that we're working on, decided to have the decision made on the R3 district, so that when we engage the other property owners in the R2 district and then the R1 district near the schools, there's a cut and dry answer. Here's the regulations that would apply to you if this zone change were to take effect. Instead of asking them, well, here's the current regulations and here's how they might change, and follow along with us about how all this goes. And when it comes time, we'll ask you which of those sets of regulations that you don't remember exactly how things went, whether that should apply. So in this case, we've separated that off. We'll make this decision about the R3. We'll present that information to the R2 property owners, and say, hey, city's considering combining these districts, and do you agree with that? For those properties adjacent to the schools that are also in the R1 district, and thank you for including the map in there, the same question happens. So here's the regulations that could apply if a zoning map change were to occur. Do you want that change to happen?
So another comment I got was that there weren't very many, there were 33 residents, approximately 33 residents feedback. Is that enough given the population of the city when this could potentially affect more of the city?
That's a question for you all.
So didn't this come up last month too? That because you had a matrix of all the different methods that you use for public outreach, and it's way more than it's ever been. So the information has been provided, and if someone was inclined to give feedback, then they did. But I just based on the information that Ben presented to us last month, when asked about it, I don't think that it was a lack of information. It's probably just a lack of response. I think it feels like the amount of information that was provided and made available was more than sufficient.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Any other questions for Annie specifically?
No, I'm still just trying to wrap my head around it and what it means long term and how it might negatively impact somebody. And I don't know what that potential negative impact could be. I don't know enough to know how to vote because I don't know, you know, I just don't know how this could impact people.
Go for it.
I mean, basically what we're talking about is increasing density.
Right. I know that. Yes. But not everybody is into that. You know, not everybody wants to support that. And so I'm trying to understand that position as well as ours moving forward. And so that I'm just, you know, trying to weigh both sides.
So I think that part of the thing was making sure that we have options if we wanted to have higher density housing. So for example, affordable housing, so that we have more tools in the toolbox to make those opportunities available in those particular zones. So the you see, creating an opportunity, that sounds awfully tropey, creating opportunities to make more opportunities. Yeah, that's what it is. So I'm floundering, Ben. I think that's kind of what we're talking about here, though, is creating a couple of tools so that we've identified some goals. If you would like to provide housing in this nature, then you're going to need to march down this path to make those opportunities available.
Right, right. Yeah, I get that. And I get that for the most part, well, I guess I can't say that. I am in favor of density for many, many reasons. But that's my personal opinion. And so when people come to me asking, well, what's the benefit of that? I think I need more information. I need to be more knowledgeable about it to be able to provide an answer to them that is both that's satisfactory to both of us.
And I have asked Ben and Liana many times. I need talking points. I love going out and about when I can. And I know that I can expect to be asked about any number of things. Yeah. And I don't want to be caught flat-footed. So I know that there's going to be certain topics that I should be versed on at a moment. And ask for talking points so that you can be prepared for those things. Because you're right, you are making changes that hopefully we agree are for the good of the city, and you'll be put into a position of defending your decision, and we would love to help you do that.
Yeah, maybe that's something we include in the new council member packet.
Well, you know,
points. Go ahead.
One thing is that, so this is applicable to the R3 multifamily residential district only right now. So you're not talking about increasing density to the R2 district. You're not talking about increasing density to the R1 or even suburban residential. So this is only applicable to the R3 that's already zoned for multifamily. So it's just increasing that density into that area that's already identified as being more dense. So as far as the long-term impact, it's already zoned to have increased density. The next decision that Ben is talking about would be for those zone changes, and that's a different discussion.
Okay.
I feel. So I don't know
And
if that,
so if we do approach R2 to change, then the same application process will apply. Residents will be asked for feedback, and considerations will be given to those residents in those areas.
correct.
I tried to highlight this in the previous staff reports, that we're waiting on your decision before we engage those people. So
Right.
when we go to do our next retreat, I'd really like to have a conversation on this topic about what the council wants out of its public involvement. So do you want them to vote on the zoning change? If so, we can put that in on the ballots, right? Like, is that what you need from them? Do you need to take a temperature? What exactly do you need out of the public involvement? Because we're getting this question a lot. Hey, there should be more public involvement, but what do you need out of it? And so think about that. And I would like to explore that topic more in a retreat or a future meeting or something. For this effort, in that survey that we did, or the questionnaire that we did, again, all the protocols that we used are in there. We sent it to every single property owner in that district, both. If I had their email address and I knew that I had their email address, they got an email from me. They also got a letter that went to the address from the assessor's page. So we engaged every single person in that district. We asked them in the questionnaire if they had an interest in sharing, just at an open-ended basis, where zoning had protected them from a neighborhood change that they didn't want. Share that with us so that I can provide it to you, so that you can think about how's this going to affect somebody. Nobody took the bait on that. Nobody provided information for you to consider.
Right. Thank you.
And then the next zones discussion is going to have different goals too. But I think to Ben's point, the process has been worked out. So, but yeah, the goals will be different when we start talking about R2.
Mhm.
I have a question.
Query.
Kind of technical question. Shouldn't that be 2021-1166? I thought our naming protocol was the adoption date. The year of adoption was the first number, and the sequential ordinance number was the second number.
So it first came up last year. So I guess that's a
First
question.
came
Do you want
up,
me to-
or do we do that by when it first came up, or adopted? I don't know. For reference, that's a good question. I'm not sure we've ever resolved that.
We need a bill numbering
Policy,
system,
yeah.
and not an ordinance numbering system. I know this topic came up in the past too, where an ordinance was presented and the city council said no to that, but they wanted to change it. But that would have been a vote on the same topic, the ordinance number, and that left an empty ordinance number that was never adopted. So a bill numbering system would be very helpful.
Guess we need to work on that, but I was just trying to understand that. Okay, never mind.
All right. Any other questions for Ben?
I'll note too, when this appeared on your agenda the last time, there was consideration about the pedestrian visibility triangle. Since you didn't vote on that at the last meeting, we took that question to the Planning Commission. They resolved that, and that resolution is included in the draft ordinance.
Go for it.
Just a quick question for Ben, maybe dovetailing on with Annie's questions, which is, I understand that this change in the density for R3 is a result of the buildable land survey results, and we're taking action to remove impediments from our code essentially. But can you explain to me what is the R2, are the changes that you're going to be proposing next with R2? And I understand we're early in the process and we haven't engaged community in this yet, but is that also a result of the same study? Is all of this as we're going kind of piecemeal? And what's the big picture? What's the whole goal? Is the whole goal this to meet the demand of housing in our city that is forecasted by the Buildable Land Survey? Yes. Okay. So we're going to be looking at all of the zones eventually.
The recommendations from that study didn't include all of the zones. We're taking up the recommendations that apply to us here. So I don't have that study up in front of me. It is on the project website for this, which I'll reference again, and I've referenced it, I think, every time. It's robust. There's a lot of information on there. And so that's a great way to get that study. There was another housing study that was done as a component of the downtown plan that looked just more closely at the Stevenson area. So the key goals with this are that we're not producing enough residential housing units to keep up with existing demand or future demand. And since we're not doing that, prices are escalating. And where there's city regulations that prevent us from keeping up with those demands, we're finding ways to remove those regulations and let the market barriers, and there are a lot of market barriers, be the real barrier and not an artificial barrier that the city creates.
And should we not be asking ourselves the question of, even though there's demand, is that, because that's going to change the character of our small town. So do we want to respond to the demand? I mean, I think it's a big discussion point. Perhaps a little late in the game.
I agree with you, Amy. That's what I was just thinking. It's like, just because the demand is being put forth, it doesn't mean we need to accept that demand. I think we do need to be cautious about how dense we want to become, because it does change the entire feel and character of the city. So I don't know that I would be rushing to move forward on going to R2 or even R1 just yet, until we really understand as a council, what do we want to create here?
So I'd like to point out that every public meeting any of us attend, the topic of affordable housing comes up over and over and over. And there's only so many knobs that we have to turn at our disposal. There's just a few things that we as a governing body can do. I mean, we can't just go out and build 500 houses. So if we are going to address that problem, this is one of the tools that we have in our toolbox, one of the few tools. And you couple that with the problem that is unique to this area, in that we are essentially an island. If you look at the river on one side and DNR land over there, and there's only so much that Stevenson can grow outward. So if we are going to grow, we have to grow upward. We have to become more dense. So I feel like this is a good move. It's a good step in the right direction to address the affordable housing issue that's plaguing us.
I think so too, but I think we should also be thinking about what is our limit. You know, I don't personally want to be a Hood River. So, you know, maybe that's what we address as Ben suggested, you know, at our next retreat, really defining what is the vision for the expansion and the density of of the city at least.
Well, Hood River's not so bad. You know, there's way worse places than Hood River. I'd like to point that out. Yeah, I don't think we're at any threat of becoming an urban metropolis anytime soon.
One thing I'd also like to direct people's attention to is our comprehensive plan that the city and community put a lot of time and thought into as well. It's from 2013 and it's available on the website, and that also provides a lot of direction, which again is why we're on the path we're on right now. I mean, that's kind of led us to do a lot of these projects as well. It's kind of the guiding light because of that. And so again, if you review that and kind of look at those priorities and actions out of that, that also kind of helps to direct the decisions and basically what staff tends to bring forward to council.
And so that's a really great point, Liana. Is it your opinion that that these changes to R3 are in keeping with what was expressed in that 2013 comprehensive plan?
I would address that question better to Ben. He probably knows it a lot better than I do. I was just trying to turn the pages so I can read them without turning my head sideways.
Now, but then the comp plan is the guiding document for the Planning Commission, and Planning Commission has been going over this and over this and over this. You know, all of these recommendations have come out of multiple meetings from the Planning Commission, and they are absolutely guided by, that's step one.
But
is it part of the?
But did they? It's not like when they looked at the buildable land survey. What did they have the comp plan in mind as well, or is this all a reaction to the buildable land survey?
Well, I'll point you to the fourth whereas clause in the ordinance. And so it references the comprehensive plan objectives that this works to implement. And so you'll have to turn to the comprehensive plan to cross-reference those. So it has been considered in the development of this. All of these areas, I'm struggling to limit it just to the consideration of the changes to the R3 district, because so much of the conversation has been about future action, which we don't have a lot of information to give you or even a recommended boundary to give you yet. So I'm struggling to do that. But with chapter 3, and especially those parts of chapter 3 that are referenced in that, it is minimal. It's not really direct guidance or recommendations in the same way that the buildable lands inventory gave us direct guidance, but there wasn't a conflict in that either. So when it talked about providing opportunities for innovative land use and housing types, this does that by reducing the minimum lot size. It allows for things like that. Other actions that you've taken, like the plan unit development regulations, also allow for that. So it has been reviewed in the context of the comprehensive plan, yes.
And thank you, Ben. That's really helpful. I had missed the citation there. So one last question from me, which is, if we pass this ordinance and make these changes to R3 and do nothing else, make no changes to R2 or R1, are we getting partway to the mark, or are we just kind of shooting ourselves in the foot? Does it need to be, how much piecemealing is there? Do we get at least partway there if we just do one piece, or is that actually more detrimental than beneficial? In other words, I guess what I'm wondering is, would it be better to look at this entire thing altogether, or does the piecemeal approach make sense?
Piecemeal gets us something. So I'm trying to pull up where I'm tracking the potential increases that each action would allow for. Not what's likely, because this many actions aren't likely to produce additional housing, but what it would do. And so for this one, the way it works out is I believe that there's 105 parcels in the R3 zone currently, and the reduction in minimum lot size would allow for one additional unit on each of those parcels. Again, that's not likely. Many are currently developed and people are happy using them as they currently use them. So there's no change to that. It just allows for more if owners do that. The Planning Commission received testimony from one of those owners who wants to do that and is waiting to submit his plans until the City Council makes their decision. So there's action on that, and there is benefit to allowing it with just this action. Not least of those benefits is having a very clear question to ask the next group of people that we engage on this. Do you want these regulations to apply to your property? Are you okay with the potential neighborhood changes that might result?
So I guess my question then is, one, is a community plan from 2013 still viable, considering change in population? And two, how does this impact property owners? I mean, if we go forward with this, and there's 105, I think you said, and it would essentially double. Am I correct in hearing that and understanding
No,
that?
that's very incorrect. So
Okay.
it would allow one additional unit on each of these properties.
Right.
And so one property may already be allowed to have 8 units. This would allow them to have 9.
Okay, got it. Got it. And so I guess, so I'm just going to stick with my first question. Is 2013 valid data today in 2021?
The 2013 comprehensive plan is adopted. Generally, you adopt those with a 20-year planning horizon to say what's the world look like, or what do we want the world to look like in 2033.
Okay.
And then you do periodic reviews and amendments to those. The process that we have in place allows for the public to propose amendments, and they're reviewed every 2 years. The only proposed amendment we've had was this previous year where city staff submitted one to get the capital improvement planning made a requirement by the city that we do that we start looking at the future, and we plan for those big dollar items like a sewer treatment plant that didn't get planned for the previous 20 years. So that's a long way of saying the community dictates in part whether that is currently viable or not. And at this point, the community has not submitted any applications or any indication that it's not currently viable.
Do they know that they can? I mean, what's the transparency on that, I wonder? But the reality is that we have a 20-year plan, so we're in our first third of that plan at 7 years then. Okay, thank you, Ben.
Okay, so not to cut conversation short, but this is something we have been working on. This is our second reading, and we have interviews coming up. So unless there's something that's really holding you back on a vote, I would entertain a motion on this one. What do you got going there, Paul?
I know my tablet just died, so.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2020-1166, amending the Stevenson zoning code for R3 multifamily residential district.
And I will second that.
All right. I have a first and a second. Any more discussion? All right, roll call for the vote, please. Amy.
Aye.
Robert.
Aye.
Paul.
Aye.
Annie.
Aye.
Thank you guys very much. Appreciate that. Okay. SDA Park Plaza contracts. It's tough.
So yeah, the Park Plaza is not shovel ready yet. They're still doing some work. I think they're wrapping up the report on some of the soft costs, the engineering work related to any sort of construction on that property. And so the Tourism Advisory Committee for the lodging taxes, there are two contracts that we have related to the Park Plaza. And so one is related to the soft costs, and then other is related to additional costs related to construction. They are not in line to get any funding this year from the Recreation and Conservation Office, RCO. And so that is the funding sources they were looking at to fund a majority of the project. So that's why they're requesting a 2-year extension, so that it can go until the end of the next project cycle. Did I say 2022? Yeah. And so we'll know more by the end of 2022 what the status is of that project, and they should have more information as far as the viability and the costs related to that because of this funding.
So 2 years ago, the SDA applied to the RCO organization and ranked very high. We were 1 project away and then got bumped. So then we were 2 out and it just didn't come together. So we had a very high level of expectation that we would score very high again. And everybody was surprised because there's practice rounds and everybody, the coach, I guess, from that organization said this was really great. It's one of the better ones we've seen. Here's some ideas to change your pitch. We went to community, picked up people from different organizations within the county. Hey, can you sit in on these dry runs that Kelly's putting together? And everything looked great until we did not rank very well at all. So it's a 2-year cycle and would like to keep the project alive. And that's why it's the 2-year extension, is so that we can kind of keep it moving towards the next RCO grant opportunity.
So are you looking for a motion then?
We are.
Yes, two motions.
2 of them.
Because there's 2 contracts, yes.
So if I read them, do I just read them back to back, or we wait and vote between each?
You have to do one, they have to do the motion separately. Yeah, one at a time.
So I'll do the motion to approve amendment number 2 to the Park Plaza soft cost contract with the Stevenson Downtown Association.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All right, first and a second, any discussion? Roll call for the vote. Amy?
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And Andy?
Aye.
You want to tackle the second one?
Sure. To approve amendment number 1 to the Park Plaza support contract with the Stevenson Downtown Association.
Second.
First and a second, any discussion? Roll call for the vote. Amy?
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And Annie?
Aye.
Thank you. Carl, Grayling Engineering.
Grayling Engineering, this is in follow-up to the exceeding the action level for lead back in September at a residence. One of the action items we need to do is a corrosion control recommendation report. Grayling Engineering is already working with us on the Hagewald well, so they already have a lot of data that we need. I would ask you to stick with them through this corrosion control report. What that entails, if you guys have any questions on it, it's basically trying to figure out if our water could potentially be causing corrosion in customers' pipes. And if so, they would also do a recommendation of what kind of treatment is needed to mitigate that issue.
Hey, Carl, what is technically the level of our water hardness was? Do you know?
No, not off the top of my head on hardness. A lot of it focuses on pH. Hardness is part of it, but there's literally, I don't know how many different things that we're testing for in the samples.
I had a case down in Eugene where we had chlorine calcification were causing corrosion to stainless steel PEX clamps, causing them to break. I just didn't know. And that was, I mean, it's treated water down there, and the issue was either the chlorine, the hardness, or fluoride treatments. So big dispute on what they were doing.
Robert, in our last CCR report, the hardness was 44.
Thank you, Liana.
Yeah.
Look at that.
44 on a scale of what, though?
Reporting level of 1.2 milligrams per liter.
Milligrams per liter. Yeah.
No, sorry, Robert. I don't have that information for your other case in front of me.
That's all right. That's why I was just wondering if we were seeing any issues.
Yeah, for another city.
Won't apply unless we're breaking clamps here. All right, motion to approve. Oh, I don't know. I'm sorry, Scotty.
Yeah, we're there.
Okay, motion to approve the professional services contract, Grayling Engineering, and the amount. Where did I just miss it?
Not to exceed 5550.
Not to exceed 5550. Thank you. I was actually in the contract, not in the agenda.
Second.
All right, have a first and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call for the vote. Amy.
Aye.
Robert.
Aye.
Paul.
Aye.
And Annie.
Aye.
Thank you. Carl, you again.
Okay, this one has to do with our lift stations that we're upgrading. What we're asking here is if we could stick with one pump manufacturer through the whole process, so we only have spare parts on the shelf for one particular style of pump, one pump manufacturer. Not only that, these pumps are probably what we would go with anyways, with the anti-clogging technologies that they have. If you guys got a chance to read that, that would probably sold itself right there. But the bigger deal is the standardization of all the pumps as we replace all of these lift stations to have one style, one brand of pump. That's what we're asking for. So we don't have to go out for competitive bidding where we could potentially get a different style of pump on each lift station.
That sounds messy. I'll go ahead and make that motion to approve resolution 2021-375, waiving the state competitive bidding requirement for the purchase of the Flight. I don't know if I'm pronouncing
It's
that
Flight.
right.
Yeah, exactly.
Light sewer pumps. Pursuant to RCW 39.04.280 1A.
A second.
We have a first and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call for the vote, please. Amy.
Aye.
Robert.
Aye.
Paul.
Aye.
And Annie.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we do have informational items in here. Yeah, I want to kind of keep us moving along here.
I just want to point out that the preliminary financial report for December, it is very preliminary, but things are looking better than initially anticipated. So the ending balances are right now are looking better than what was budgeted, which is always good. So further analysis to come.
Okay. How much time do you guys need? Staff types for your reports.
Mine is a little bit in the weeds. It could actually maybe wait till next. It's nothing we're going to be doing anytime soon. It was just an informational item for council having to do with sewer stuff. So we could probably wait till next time.
Ben?
You know, I can talk. I will limit it. The tree inventory management plan, we've received the submittals for that, and it's out to our small committee to review those. Hoping to get those reviews back by Friday, potentially Monday. But we will interview somebody between this meeting and the next meeting, and should have a contract for approval to you guys at the next meeting. The other issue that I want, shorelines management program update. This is one of those big projects that's been in the works for a long time. It's something the city council approved for ecology review in 2018. Ecology has now got around to reviewing that, and they should be issuing a decision for us to work towards shortly. I don't know if it'll be February that'll get to you, but in the spring still. And then another really a question I want you guys to talk about again on the public involvement stuff with another next phase of our talk about residential density is looking at the parking requirements of the downtown area and reducing those requirements for mixed use development, new residential uses. And the downtown plan also had recommended some reductions for restaurants and retail, among some other changes. So in October, the Planning Commission was presented with a red line discussion draft of this, and things have really ground to a halt on that. So I'm under the impression that they don't know what you guys want for public involvement, and they're afraid to not do it right. And so for these changes that were proposed or that were put together for review in October, nothing has happened. And we've got a planning commissioner who has volunteered to help address some of the issues that came out of that, including how many off-street parking spaces are there in the downtown area. We don't have that information right now. Working with planning commissioner on that and Kelly from the SDA on that. But even getting that information isn't going to get us very close to having a regulation that's presented to you guys. Planning Commission hasn't done that. Again, I've got landowners saying, when's this going to happen? How do we make this happen? We're trying to plan for all the outdoor seating we need, and we want to expand our operations. So can you all give some indication of your expectations about the parking requirements?
Are you looking for us to opine about that right now?
No. Okay, so one more thing to set the stage on this. With amendments to the zoning code, the requirement is that the Planning Commission have an opportunity to review and provide a recommendation. And so that process allows for zoning code amendments to stem from the City Council, be reviewed, handed over to the Planning Commission as a whole. They can review and make a recommendation for a change, and you can take that or disregard that. It's not the process we usually go through. Planning Commission does a lot of wading through the weeds and gives you a document to adopt. With this parking one, I'm wondering if you all want to cut through this knot that's developed around the parking issue and say, give us your recommendation on the previously circulated draft. If you have more specific public involvement requests for that.
So we talked about this not too long ago. The existing parking, and don't forget, there's two parts to parking: the actual inventory, and then what is required of you as a business to provide. That you have to say there are this many parking spaces, and depending on, right now it's based on the type of business and square footage, correct? It's like a double. Back in the 90s, there was the last downtown plan suggested really tightening the screws on the amount of space, amount of parking spaces for your type of business, with the idea that there would be, what was the acronym, Ben? An organization?
PBIA, Parking and Business Improvement Area.
So that you would enter into an agreement or this organization, and you would provide money to build off-street parking, so parking karma, so that their inventory would be complete, but it might not necessarily be in front of your business. The second part of that plan that said, here are some potentially onerous regulations. Part two, let us help you make those restrictions not so onerous. Part two never happened. So we have been taking a lot of heat over the years for the regulations being, from developers, like, has seriously been a roadblock in getting some development in here. I mean, that's been a common response. So it feels like make it less onerous, and we've got some good headway. I'm confused by what the trepidation is. Is it the regulation itself, the math that would then produce how many spots per business?
Part of it is that when they looked at that discussion draft in order to set things up, they said, this all makes sense. What would be controversial about this? And what they came away with then was, well, maybe we just do an open-ended survey question saying parking in Stevenson is, and let people fill in the blank. And when we took that back to our small group to say, do you think this gets us the answer that we want? They said, no, it doesn't get us the answer we want. And so maybe we can provide more information about the number of parking spaces that are on street, which is information we have, and then the number of off-street spaces, which is information that we don't have. And so now it's, okay, we're in information gathering mode again before we can get to a recommendation that was already put in place after information was previously gathered. So,
especially if that presentation included the side-by-side comparison. This is what it used to be. This is what it is now. All right, business owner that is planning a retail organization or operation or a mixed use. Yesterday, it would have been this. Tomorrow, it's going to be this. Are we good? Because it's going to go in the favor of, because we've agreed for a while there, we just haven't had the tools or haven't taken the time to adjust these onerous regulations that we've been taking a lot of grief for. So this is our chance to start moving forward. So yeah, I'm confused by the trepidation.
The baseline requirements, again, for amending the zoning code are to have a public hearing, publish that in advance, do our SEPA analyses, etc. Is that acceptable to the city council? I think the impression is that that's not acceptable. The city council wants more before they can make a decision.
I'll just say, I think that the process that you went through for the R3 rezoning, that we just had an opportunity to review all of that, even though the response wasn't huge, that's a great process. That's the kind of public outreach that I want to be able to say, hey, we took this to you, we solicited your opinion, we did it in a number of different ways, right? That's one of the things that I was looking for, is how many different ways did we reach out? And you had a lot of different touch points there. So I think if you follow that process, we're golden.
And adding to that, it's transparency. You know, we're welcoming people to see what's happening and to be part of that happening, to have a voice in it.
So can they do that again, Ben?
Yeah, where the questionnaire is a little bit dicey, because with the R3, we were able to just establish high-level policy guidance that we were asking easy questions. With parking, you end up doing more explanation of really obscure details. Like, for example, restaurant parking currently requires 1 space per 100 square feet. Now, if you start peeling back the onion on that, that's about 1 space per 10 by 10 area. That's about 1 space per 4 top. The question that we're asking is, should the regulation only apply to the places where people eat instead of where it currently applies to the storage areas, the kitchen?
That don't support a customer.
that don't support a customer. And so the amount of education that needs to go into reviewing these really in the weeds details isn't worth it for the questionnaire. I can certainly do direct mail outs to everyone. I can get those touch points in, get it on the Facebook page. It's already on the website. Send it to our downtown shareholders list again and ask for them to really make their voices heard to you all or to the planning commission or however.
I think in those instances, I don't want to speak for everybody, but if it's information that's hard to explain, it's better left for a public hearing where there's a presentation of the information and then a solicitation of response. So in that case, the outreach is, hey, we're having this super duper important meeting, come to learn what it's about and then voice your opinion, right?
Right. But like I said, the part that always concerns me about this is that it's really easy to tangle up the two elements of parking, that there isn't enough. Well, compared to what? But here's the thing, is I'm completely jaded on that because I spent a lot of time in Southern California, and parking in front of your final destination is a pipe dream. You go there on the off chance that you're going to watch somebody driving away from that sweet spot, but oh no, it's the wider and wider concentric circles until you finally find a place to park. So yeah, untangling the difference between quantity and regulation is going to be a tough one.
But this discussion is, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm getting closer to an action plan in my head of having that informational workshop followed by a public hearing. Do you want to serve as that forum, or do you want the Planning Commission to serve as that forum?
Just a bug in your guys' ears. Our meetings have been going longer and longer and longer. So any work that we can, any heavy lifting that we can get done before it comes to us feels like the, my rant earlier, efficient and effective way to keep these meetings moving along.
I feel like we've generally supported the Planning Commission. Hopefully they feel that way, that their work is important to us, and we appreciate them digging into the weeds on all those things. So I'm in favor of that too. But I guess I would, Ben, as you're putting together your plan, I would not open up that can of worms about, like, this is a big public discussion about, do we have enough parking? This is really aimed at business owners and the regulation around what parking requirements are or are not in place.
And developers too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. But I mean, it's not for the GQ public. It's not for me going to pick up my script at the pharmacy to weigh in on. I mean, I might show up, but it should be tailored to get the people who are who have skin in the game in terms of the development.
I agree.
Okay, and if a recommended draft came to you next month for first reading, is that sound okay?
Don't forget the very fine charts that you're so famous for. This is what it was. This is what it will be.
My only thought on this is that when you're presenting the Planning Commission with options, I think one of the options that should be discussed is the option of just lifting all the requirements and just not having requirements on businesses, just as an option.
Whoa.
Yeah, just a reminder, anybody can attend the Planning Commission meeting. I want to follow along. Amy, we've done this for years and we do back planning, but tonight we spent 35 minutes rehashing planning's decision on zone R3. I mean, we're second guessing the people who are doing the heavy lifting, and that's bothering me tonight a lot. Just point that out.
And Ben, we've got interviews to do. What else?
That's all.
Liana?
Okay, I'll be brief. So in my written report, mentioned that Rock Creek Committee is getting up and rolling. So once that's kind of moving forward, Amy, I haven't forgotten about the Art Committee. That's going to be my next doodle poll and meeting to kind of set up. working on getting the traffic study requests for qualifications or proposals out by the end of the month. And then the last one is I wasn't able to get it in time for the council packet, but the Pacific Crest Endurance Sports Festival that I mentioned a couple meetings ago, that is going to take place on June 18th to 20th of this summer. They are requesting a letter of approval to kind of dot their I's and cross their T's for all of their requirements for ODOT. This is a festival that used to take place in Sun River. They've sort of outgrown Sun River, and the distances between the lodging and then the locations were too great, and so they're relocating to Cascade Locks, which is great for our area. And they bring, they were mentioning, I don't have all my notes with me, but up to 1,000 participants. Here we go. They typically have up to 4,000 participants. Their largest event was 5,000 participants. And then they say about 2.5 to 3 people travel with each athlete. And they typically rely on about 500 volunteers. And they also work with organizations that are needing reimbursement for fundraising. And so it's a great opportunity for some of those organizations in our area. What they're planning on doing is having parking at fairgrounds for spectators, and then busing them over to Cascade Locks. And so they do, I think, like triathlons. I don't know if they're doing a sprint triathlon. They're working on doing, I think, a full-size triathlon or Olympic length. They do a lot of running events, and then they also have other activities that go along with that. They have kids activities, they have kind of the whole fair theme going on, they have concerts and things of that nature. And so again, it's great that it'll be coming to the area. They're working with the lodge as well on lodging, as well as I think some other locations on both sides of the river. So they again are looking for a letter of approval. I don't have any draft, and I don't know that they can wait until the next council meeting. So I guess one of the questions is, would that be something that council supports? Okay. So Scott, would you be comfortable signing that letter of approval?
Oh yeah.
Okay. There we go. That's all my report.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the vouchers.
Motion to approve the vouchers is presented.
Second.
First and a second, any discussion? Roll call for the vote. Amy?
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Annie?
Aye.
Unless you guys have something pressing, I'm gonna shoot right past 13. Anybody? Okay, because we're down to an hour for how many? We've got stuff to do. Anything that you guys want to see on the agenda for next month? All right. Okay, so in the packet, there are the various applications for those that have applied for the vacant seat. You guys were solicited for some sample questions, and that is by no means the only questions that you can ask, but it is a starting point. Did we get these questions out to the?
I have not sent them out to the applicants. I also want to let everyone know, Pat Price is not able to attend tonight, and I sent this out to council ahead of the meeting, so it's up to council to decide whether or not they want to move forward with the decision without interviewing him. And then Shelley Kent withdrew her application because of work commitments. She's not able to commit the time necessary. So the applicants that we have here, and I will go ahead and sort of make them presenters as I go through. But we have Christy McCaskill, Harry, I don't see him on the list. He was on earlier. Harry DeVoe, Lisa Burney, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing anyone's name wrong. Paul Goins, Rick May, and Dave Cox. And I'll keep my eyes open for Harry to see if he rejoins.
Okay, so,
And so again,
go ahead, sorry.
one of the goals is so the questions, we'll ask one question of each of the applicants and then go on to the next question, and we'll rotate who gets asked the first question. So we're not picking on one person to not have time to think of a good answer.
So again, yeah, we're mixing up the person that gets asked the question first, because if the same person gets asked the question last, they get the advantage of having multiple applicants in front of them to formulate an answer, where the first person is caught flat-footed each time. So let's start with Christy. Christy will take the first question. Council members, you have your questions. The council members got questions, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Who would like to ask the first question?
I will.
Go for it.
And this is for Christy, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Christy, why did you apply?
Because I love this city and I wanted to be more involved than I already am, I guess.
Okay. And then, so we'll just keep going down the list on that same question. Did you have anything else on that, Christy, before I cut you off?
No, not at all.
All right.
That's basically, I mean, I'm already involved. I just wanted to be more involved, and this is a good way to do that.
Okay, and we haven't heard from Harry yet, it looks like. Lisa.
Hello. I decided to put in an application because I really do love living here in Stevenson. I too want to be involved and help make decisions that are going to be best for our city here.
Thank you. Paul?
Just like everyone else, I want to be involved. I know the city's going to be growing. The only way to contribute to the future is to be part of it.
Very good. Rick?
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the time. Yeah, there's, I've been to a lot of meetings where I was sitting there by myself in these meetings. They're really interesting to me. I think there's a lot of contributions I can make. And also, there's a lot that I can learn and bring to this. So I'm interested in making a contribution to the city, and then just trying to figure out what's the best for this city, and then to try to join with the rest of my council members to bring whatever our joint opinions are together to be able to be successful.
Thank you. And Dave?
Well, if I get this figured out, I'll be better off.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah. Well, after serving for 33 years for the county, for the citizens, and having been retired, I just feel like I need to do something else other than the projects that my wife has for me. And so I just, this opportunity came up, and I had thought about it in the election process. I thought about running, and my wife talked me out of it. And this opportunity came up, and I just like to get back into the service of the community.
Very good. Thank you. So Still no Harry. So Lisa, you're going to take be the first one asked on the next question.
Sure.
Who on city council would like to ask the next question?
I can do that. So please tell us about your background as it relates to the requirements of the position. And have you ever been involved in civil service?
I have not been involved in civil service. Growing up in Los Angeles, I did work with the city I lived in, City of Monterey Park. I was a Parks and Recreation leader for several years. Right now, I am working as the ASB advisor at the high school. So I find myself pretty involved with different activities. And I don't have experience as civil service, but I'm here to learn. I'm very open and very interested in being part of the city. So,
Thank you. Paul.
So I have not been part of civil service either. Spent 20 years in the military, managed budgets doing that, and managed people as well. Retired from the military, moved out here. This is exactly where I wanted to live, and currently manage budgets, facilities, and people again. That's why I'm wanting to do this with the town as well. We have plenty of people that need a voice, and the best way to do it is hear what they have and take it to heart and move in with the rest of this.
Thank you. Rick?
Yeah, I've also not been on your side of the fence. I've been on the other side a lot. I ran my own business since 1985. And a lot of what I did was work with government agencies, the Oregon Department of Transportation, different cities. Last big project was the city of Lake Oswego. So I've had a lot of experience with that, land use attorneys. I've been on both sides of the fence, basically being support for governmental agencies and also support for individuals. So I am considered to be an expert in certain areas that I think are going to be useful to you guys, like land use, zoning, valuations, and things like that. I am considered an expert, and that's one of the reasons I'm interested in coming in. Is that I think that in a certain limited areas, I can be of service.
Thank you. And Dave?
Well, as far as civil service, working for the sheriff's office for 33 years. So I have a little bit of experience with that. Since 2003, I was the undersheriff, responsible basically for the entire sheriff's office budget. And if you remember back in about 2004 is when the county started cutting back. And when you make $1.5 million cut in 1 year, you do a lot of things with the budget. So over the years, I did that. I was responsible for the radio system, the 911 system. So I've had quite a bit of that experience. As far as the this last meeting that we just went through was a little bit deja vu for me because some of the situations you were talking about, R3 zoning, we talked about that when I was a member on the planning commission, the parking issue, whether or not we were going to have public parking. We talked about it many, many years ago in the planning commission, and it seems to keep coming up. So I'm just excited about being able to work with those issues and see what we can address on those.
Great, thanks. And Christy?
Well, I do have a little bit of experience with civil service, but I have a lot of experience with committees and board of directors just around town. I've been on the chamber board of directors for years. I was the president of the board of directors for the museum, and I was the chairman of the board of trustees at the Eagles and I don't know. I'm ready to go to the next level. I want to help make decisions with the city, and I want to collaborate with everyone.
Thank you. All right. So Paul will get the first question this time. And again, council members, these are suggested questions. You certainly don't have to read them verbatim if you feel the need to massage them, or if you want to go rogue and do something that's not even on this page, feel free. So who would like to ask the next question? Anybody?
Yeah, I'll jump in, Scott.
Go for it.
Thanks.
And so, Paul, you're going first on this one.
Paul, pleasure to make your acquaintance. I'm gonna drop down and just ask you, in your opinion, after living here the period of time you have, what do you see as kind of the, let's say, top 3 city issues that you might see would come up that need to be addressed, need more time, something like that?
Well, we've got an influx of people moving to the area. And out of that, it's more of just getting the town together to actually build it in a better fashion. We do have festivals and things like that, but a lot of people don't understand what the background for some of that stuff is. So getting everybody together would first and foremost probably benefit us. Secondly, just looking at how we're wanting to expand or move things around in the downtown area. But what's the benefit of it? There's not always a clear-cut reason, if you will, as to why we're doing it. So putting that out so that when we are asked or when people are in the area, you can actually explain why we're doing what we're doing. And then thirdly, just actually having a clear-cut path of what we want to do to expand our growth, but manage it properly. We don't want to explode to where we can't cope with what we're doing, but not hinder it either.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Rick?
Here, hold on a second. I think I was on mute there. Sorry about that. So yeah, that was a pretty good response. In the short run, I think that I have concerns with the infrastructure and the cost of the sewer system, how we're going to do that. I think that, some of this funding they've got in, and Ben's done an excellent job of getting some grants. That's really been helpful. We also have to look at the creating the infrastructure or some sort of system in, so they don't run into this problem again. So I'm really interested in being able to do that. I'm also interested in affordable housing. I'm really taking a look at how do we create affordable housing. I really think that this idea of taking this R3 land and making it basically double the density, I think that was a really pretty good move. I know I wrote a letter saying, please have a discussion of this whole matter. I think that's important too. And I think Annie brought that up, and I think Amy did also. I think that that's really an important conversation to have. And so those kind of things. I think that we need to look at how we support our businesses, because our business environment really helps support our schools, our system, and our police system. Everything really it goes on with how well our economy goes. So I'm really interested in how do we help our businesses, especially in this time of COVID-19. How do we get them to survive and then thrive?
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you. Christy.
Well,
I love you. Sorry, I'm out of order. I'm so sorry. You get one more chance to collect your thoughts. Dave is up next. Chill out. My bad.
That's okay. That's okay. When I first started for the sheriff's office, there was a comment made that all you have to do is wait about 10 years. And what you see happening in Portland Metropolitan District, you'll see eventually move out into the urban areas around, especially around Stevenson and on up the river. And I think that's probably one of my major concerns is the urban growth that is moving this way. I was raised in Washougal, and you look at the way Washougal is now, and it's unrecognizable. I'm concerned about the central business core of the city and where we're going with that. I really am concerned. Scott, you've mentioned this several times about how are we going to make sure that our businesses survive, and it's critical that we talk about that and try to figure out ways, whether it's to reduce taxes or whatever that is. The infrastructure that goes along with the growth that we're going to be looking at. Long term, we're talking about putting in the lift stations now, but the available land that we have left to actually develop, will the infrastructure that we're putting in place now be able to cover that in 20 years? And then along with that, I'm very concerned about the economic viability of the city as an entity and where we are going with the budget and how that affects our taxpayers, especially the elderly taxpayers, and what we're asking them to come up with. And so, I had several comments just about the increase to the $80 for the sewer fee, and and those are real concerns for the citizens in our city, and we've got great citizens out here. We just need to make sure that we do everything we can as a city council to address those issues.
Thanks, Dave.
Now, Christy.
I didn't need any more time to gather myself on that question. Thank you. I think one thing that's been ongoing since I've been here is the affordable housing. I don't know how we deal with that, just with the cost of land. But I'd like to be involved with possibly making that happen. But currently, a big problem as being a business owner myself is COVID. And I'm concerned with all these businesses being shut down. And although I've written our representatives, I think being on a city council, I think I could be more involved in helping with situations like this. Hopefully we never have another one like this, but I just want to help. And that's all.
Thanks, Christy.
And Lisa.
So I have the three things I think about a lot living here in Stevenson. The first thing is the growth of our businesses in our town and looking at expanding our downtown, but also maintaining our small town feel, because that's one of the reasons why my husband and I moved here. We were looking in White Salmon, Hood River and such, and we decided on Stevenson because it still does feel like a small town. And we, in my opinion, I would like to keep that feel for us, but still having some growth in our city. The next one is I am on Facebook a lot, and I see a lot of division of our city, of different opinions and such, and that's okay. But how do we unite our city and make sure that we're all supporting each other, our neighbors and such, in a way that we can be proud of where we live? And then the affordable housing is an issue that I can see. I work with high school students, and we do talk a lot about how things that their families can't afford and such, and having to move from place to place because of housing and affordability. So listening to the meeting today about changing the R3 zoning was, I think, a positive direction. But with that growth too, like Dave was saying, there's going to be some infrastructure problems that we need to look at later down the line.
Thanks, Lisa. Pleasure to meet you.
Okay, so Rick will be the one to take the question or answer the next question first. Who hasn't gone yet? Amy,
Yeah.
what question would you like to ask Rick?
I would like to ask Rick, in your opinion, what are the most important qualities required to be a successful city councilor? And could you please tell us about a time when you exhibited some of those qualities?
Well, I think the first thing is, I think Lisa had mentioned it, and I think it's really important is that, it's important to have civil dialogue. And it's also important to realize that once a decision is made, we all pull together behind that decision. Even if the decision is something that I don't agree with, we all pull behind and try to be as successful as possible. Once a decision is made, the decision is made and we move forward. I think that that's really an important factor that's going on. The other thing is that, you got 200 and some pages worth of documentation that's going along. I'm really interested in having discussions on how we can take a look at that documentation. I think the idea of taking that documentation and having it in a more readable form, or maybe breaking up the city council into having a focus where we all read the documentations, but one of us takes a lion's share of learning in detail, so that we come into these meetings and we're much more prepared and understand what's going on. I think that might be helpful to be able to do. And there's a lot probably that I don't know. And one of the things that I think is important is to go in there and really at the very first is just to listen carefully, not really have a whole bunch of opinions. In fact, is have as least opinions as possible, and really just listen. Where have I done that in my work? Well, for 35 years, I guess it's a little over 35 years now, running my business, dealing with all sorts of different kinds of government agencies and individuals and attorneys. It takes ability to be able to deal with a lot of different personalities and successfully do so. So I think that over that particular period of time, I've learned significantly amount of how to do that. There's always more to learn. I'm never perfect at that job, but I think I would be a plus.
All right, thank you. Dave.
There we go. Could you restate the question for me?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Dave. In your opinion, and I can put it in the chat or I don't have access to the chat. In your opinion, what are the most important qualities required to be a successful city councilor? And can you tell us about a time when you exhibited some of those qualities?
Well, I think there's probably two. One is knowing that there's a backstory. When you come into a new position, for example, in the city council, or when I came on board on the planning commission, there was a lot of things that were thrown at me right out of the get-go. And I learned to listen a lot because you really don't know what all of the stories are. You have opinions and you think you know what the answers are, but it really takes a long time and Annie has actually alluded to this several times, it takes a long time to get your feet on the ground and really be able to know what you're making decisions about. And so I think that's really important. When I was on the incident management team for the Region 4 incident management team for the area, when we first came together, everybody was fire chief, under sheriff, or whatever. And when you come into incident command and you're assigned to a position, everybody was trying to use their particular position and their particular organization, and there just was no teamwork. And I think when you come in to a position such as a city council, you have to understand that you may have a position somewhere, or you may be retired and old like me, but you come in and you listen to the other opinions, and then you make a conscious effort to totally understand where people are coming from. And once you make that decision, you make that decision as a group. And then you don't turn around and a week later, when you're out in the public, start back talking that position. And I have seen that time and time again in some of the different organizations that I have belonged to. And that is really detrimental to the overall organization growth and the ability to be able to get things done.
Thank you. All right, Christy.
Wait, I need more time. I think you need to be informed. You definitely need to be prepared. So just being in a lot of these or attending a lot of these meetings, it felt like maybe there wasn't a lot of preparation or before the meeting and like it had to be tabled for other meetings. I think being prepared would be a good thing to be. Being unbiased is important. Someone had asked me if I was going to be on the city council, what would I do if a friend or a neighbor had an issue and it was coming before council? Well, that's where being unbiased would be important. Also, definitely be collaborative because the council's a team, and I'd love to be on that team, and I'm a team player. And definitely educate yourself on the issues that are at hand and what are being dealt with and voted on. And that's about it.
Great, thank you. And Lisa.
I think someone on the city council needs to, first of all, be a leader, but also a team player. You have to understand that we're making decisions for a lot of people, all the residences in Stevenson. So everybody needs to work as a team and make it work for everyone who lives in Stevenson. I also believe you need to be flexible because things do change. And just like this meeting, new information came in the last minute. You have to be flexible and be able to adapt to all the changes happening. And then be able to interact with the public. And as a teacher, I deal with students and parents on a daily basis. So I feel like I have good personable skills and can interact well with others. I'm very good at reading body language and facial expressions and such, so I can adapt to different situations and make sure that everyone is comfortable in a situation. But I think being a good leader and a team player is important for being on city council.
Thank you so much. And Paul.
Well, first, listening. We've got different groups throughout this community that are going to be affected. So listening and knowing which group we're actually affecting the most, whether it's the business owners or residents. We have neighbors that are going to voice concerns and expect us to take it to the rest of the council. But at the same time, weigh the options. So it may not benefit us directly, or it may, but we've got to take ourselves out of the equation. It's not about us anymore. It's about the community's best interest, as everyone else has said. And then lastly, just being transparent. If people expect one thing and you present the face of what you're doing and then do it backwards on that, we're going to lose the trust and we're going to lose the faith of the community. And that's just going to make everybody fall. Much like Dave said, once the decision's made, you present the unified front and you stay that way. If you start saying something about a fellow council member after the fact, it's just going to tear it apart and no one's going to want to believe in anything that we present after that. And it's something you deal with day to day, military or civilian sector in management. You have employees that come to you, they have concerns, they have issues, and you have to weigh what's best for your team and what's best for that person. And it's the same thing here. we have to hear what their problems are, what their concerns are, and what's best for the community. It may not be able to help that one person, but if it can at least help the community afterwards, that's the way to go.
Thank you. So who asked the first question? Was that Paul or Amy? Which one of you asked that? So Amy, or Annie, sorry. Annie, you're up in rotation. So it's your question and it's Dave's first.
Ooh, Dave. Okay, let me make it a good one.
Okay.
Okay. What is your typical approach to dealing with conflict? Please give 1 or 2 examples, including the outcomes.
I'm just trying to think about 33 years of law enforcement.
Lots of conflict.
Oh boy. When I first started with the sheriff's office, I was assigned in a single vehicle working up around Mount St. Helens. My closest backup was about an hour and 10 minutes away, which was Stevenson or Woodland. And you learned to work through situations and try to de-escalate. Boy, I'm trying to grasp one particular thing that I worked on at the sheriff's office. I mean, there's just so many things. Or for example, after I retired from the sheriff's office, I went to work as the athletic director for the high school. And that was a real challenge because I had coaches that wanted to get rid of coaches. It was a real mess. And you have to deal with kid gloves. You have to respect people's positions. And you also have to think about why they feel they do and act the way they react. And if you are cognizant of those things, you're able to work through a lot of really difficult situations. So I'll leave that with you.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Dave. Christy?
Well, I think the first thing to do would be to stay calm, which isn't always easy. I was thinking of something that happened when I was working at City, actually. We had somebody come in very aggressively and it was late. And we just really tried to calm them down and try to see, you know, why they felt the way they felt and why they were so angry. And it turned out that they just didn't understand what they thought they were reading. So then what happened was we read them and explained to them what was happening and de-escalated the whole situation. And then everything was calm and fine.
Thank you.
Lisa.
Typically the way I deal with conflict, and this happens often, I just stop what I'm doing and give the person who's upset a moment to kind of vent and explain, because there's a reason why they are upset, a reason why there is conflict. So listening to that person, giving them a chance to just share what's happening and letting them know that you understand their situation. At the moment, I may not have a solution or an answer, but to let them know that I understand and I will help them solve their problem. So that's how I typically deal with conflict.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Rick.
When I run into people that are angry and in conflict, one of the things that I've noticed is that there's a universal feeling that they're not being heard. And one of the first things that I found to be pretty effective is that if I just stop and listen without an agenda, listen without wanting to make the next comment, listening with not wanting to win the argument, just simply listening. And even somebody that's furious will eventually just run out of steam. And what it is that at the end of that particular period, if I turn around and the best I possibly can repeat back what I think that they have heard, they get the sense of being heard. And that creates an opening in them to hear whatever I have to say back. And if I talk in some way where they can hear me, and I do it with some sort of empathy in that, then that usually the vast majority of time that works. Now, am I perfect at that? No. Is there oftentimes I forget that? Yes. But I have seen how effective that is, and that's always my goal to do.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we are running short on time. So just to kind of keep things moving along, city council members, is there any?
I don't think we heard from Paul yet on that question.
I don't know why I crossed you off, Paul. I didn't mean to cut you off. Please feel free.
Well, first, having a thick skin. Most of the time when there's a problem that's being addressed and someone that's voicing a concern, whether it's aggressively or not, it's normally not directed towards you in the situation unless you're the one that actually started it. But having that thick skin to know that it's not you, and then pulling yourself slightly out of the situation so you can actually hear what they're saying and let them voice their concerns. But knowing that at the end of it, once you've heard it, listening to it, like it was just said, repeat it back to them. You may have missed something. And if you did, they're going to actually come back and tell you what it is, because now you're actually hearing them. But when it's completed, looking at it and then taking it to heart as best you can. It's the only real way to kind of do it.
So now that I've allowed everyone to answer that question, do any of the city council members have any particular question that they want to ask any particular candidate?
Here, I'll ask Paul. You were in the military. Were you serving overseas before you came back here? I saw you're working for In Situ now, right?
I do work for In Situ now, yes. And yes, I did spend a considerable amount of time overseas.
Where'd you grow up, Paul?
Grew up in Ohio, small town, pretty much like Stevenson.
There you go. I appreciate I hadn't had a chance to meet you. That was a couple of questions. Lisa, same for you. You grew up in LA, or did you just live there before you moved here?
I grew up in Los Angeles. I moved out of Los Angeles around 23.
At age 23, or took you that long? All right.
Hi, Dave.
Yeah, that's a couple of questions that I just had. Scott, thanks.
Anybody else?
He doesn't care where I'm from.
He knows you.
So rude.
Dave's been here the longest. He wins the award. He's lived here, outlived any one of us in this community.
I'd like to just know, is there anybody who feels they have like tons and tons of experience with government budgets or big budgets, and conversely, is there anybody who feels like they have very little experience with budgets and government budgets? Because government budgets are very different than personal budgets or even business budgets.
So that was just in general?
Yeah.
All right, so just so we can get everybody in, Christy?
I definitely have experience with budgets and working for the city.
All right, Lisa?
As the ASB advisor, I deal with a high school budget on a daily basis.
Thank you. And I'm not going to skip over you this time, Paul.
Had plenty of experience with budgets, small as far as shop level all the way up through current position, I've got multiple facilities and multiple aircraft and other things that I have to budget into accounting. And as far as the government side of it, yes, plenty of experience with the way that they will tell you how to spend it and then how to figure out where that money actually has to go so that you're in accordance with the way it's supposed to be done, and they don't come back to you to tell you that you spent it improperly.
And Dave.
Yeah, right out of college, I was a cost analyst, and then working for the sheriff's office, as I said, I started getting involved in the budget when we started the DARE program. I was tasked with budgeting that program. And then, as I said, 2003, when Sheriff Brown took over, I was tasked with the entire sheriff's office budget, the 911 budget, and the communications budget for the county. And 2017, when I went to work as the athletic director, I worked with Stevens and Carson School District staff to come up with the new BARS codes. They were transitioning from an old BARS code system to a new BARS code system so that we could actually track real-time expenses much more minutely than what they were in the past. So yes, multi-million dollar budgets with the county, making major cuts and doing grants, those types of things.
Thank you. And Rick?
Yeah, Julie and I are partial owners of a shopping center, other large, well, medium-sized shopping center called Bowles Marketplace in Littleton, Colorado. And every year we have to create a budget on that particular project. It's a multi-million-dollar budget. And then basically we put that budget together and then we run it throughout the year. And we run it for the rest of the ownership and for ourselves. So, and we've been doing that for, I don't know, about a dozen years or so.
Great. Anybody else want one more chance to ask a question? Or are you guys ready to deliberate? All right, very good. So we are going to go into a different meeting, and do all of you on City Council have your meeting invite for that next executive session that we're getting ready to go into?
And we're going to keep this one open. We're not leaving this one. Is that right?
This is going to stay open because we have to make announcements as far as how long we're going to be gone and when we come back. So this part's going to stay open, but we need a chance to go into our own that only we have invites for.
Liana, as the director on the Zoom calls, can't you just put us in a room? That's what we always do in these mediations.
Yeah, I would love to, but because we're in a webinar format, I can't. And so what just happened? So Ben is starting the next meeting.
Okay.
And so that's why there's a separate meeting notice. And so I will still stay in this one, and I'll use my phone and a different account to log into that meeting. And so, but I'll also be on this meeting as well, and I'll be sharing my screen shortly, so that I can notify people of what is the open time. So hold on one second, and Ben will be, I'll talk with Ben on the.
Right. My only understanding from Zoom though is if for us to go to the other Zoom meeting, we have to leave this meeting.
This one.
Yeah. And then we have to come back to this one when we come back out. Okay. All right.
Yeah, that's the way most of my cities do that. Yeah, you know, I just want to remind everybody, and for the sake of the applicants, that this executive session topic is only to discuss qualifications of the candidates. There's no straw polling allowed. The only place the council is allowed to actually formulate a vote for the next council member would be in the open session that you come back into, just so that the council is clear on this. It's been a little while since we've done this, but I just want to make absolutely clear that we don't take any kind of a straw poll in the executive session.
Okay, so council members, do you have the link to the next meeting?
Yep.
All right, and you also understand that you need to leave this meeting. Okay. All right, I will see you at the next meeting. Applicants, don't go anywhere.
Are we all just gonna sit here and stare at each other?
We can talk.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm gonna go to the bathroom.
That's okay.
The old guy's gotta go.
Thank you for sharing. I think that was a really pretty good group. Yeah. You know, I've been going to council meetings for a number of years, and I think this is the first time I've applied. And a lot of times there was only one applicant, and then they just picked that one because that was the only choice they had. So.
And I saw 7 others, and I was like, ah.
Did it get up to 7? Last time I looked, that was 6.
It was a total of 8, but 2 weren't here, or 3 didn't show up.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is kind of unusual. I think all the way after you go to fill out that application, you would think that would happen. Anyway, so you're a school teacher, right?
I am. I work at the high school.
At the high school? Yeah. Well, my dad was a principal, and my mom was a school teaper. So
okay.
I swam in that sea.
It's a fun sea to be in.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting.
Hey guys, sorry I'm interrupting. I'm gonna have to end this meeting to get the other meeting started.
Okay.
Because we're having some technical challenges with opening it up. And so if you give me a second, I'll stop this meeting. Amy, do you know how long they said they were going to be in the executive session for?
Actually, they did not say.
Okay.
And you know that meeting's not going, right? I just popped.
I do know. Yeah, I have to log off this one and close it down.
Sorry.
That's okay. So yeah.
We need a duration. Yes.
Yes. So we need a duration, but no one's here. So Ken, do you want to say a duration? I'm not recording right now. But.
Okay. Well, I really have no idea how long they'll need, but if you go too long, you have to sit around and do nothing. So
somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 10 minutes. We don't need a lot of time, I don't think.
Okay.
Well, let's say 5 minutes, and then if we need to extend, we can extend.
Yeah. Okay. So how about so we'll be in executive session for 5 minutes. But due to the technical challenges and everything, we'll probably how about say we'll start this back up at 9:50.
Yeah.
So that gives us
All
7
right.
minutes.
Fair enough.
Okay. We'll get offline, and then we'll.
So you'll have to log on. So you have to log back in 7 minutes.
Fantastic.
Okay, with
at
the
9:50.
same log on.
The
then?
same log on. Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right,
So at what time?
At 9:50.
At 9:50. Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.